The walnut-handled chisel hit the bottom of the plastic tote with a hard metallic crack. June Mercer stopped in the workshop doorway, one hand still wrapped around her purse strap. For a moment, nobody noticed her. Darren stood at Cal's workbench in his good jeans and an old college sweatshirt, sorting tools into black tubs. Two men from his crew carried the small drill press toward the open garage door. Blue painter's tape marked the tubs: sell, donate, scrap. The chisel lay in scrap, its walnut handle crossed by the pale crescent scar Cal had left with a mallet in 1989. "What are you doing?" June asked. One of the men nearly dropped the drill press. Darren turned. Surprise flickered over his face, followed almost immediately by annoyance. "You're back early. My teeth didn't require the full afternoon." "What are you doing?" He glanced around as though the answer were obvious. The pegboard behind him had been cleared in patches, leaving bright silhouettes where steel had shielded the wood from 40 years of dust and sunlight. "Helping," he said. "We talked about this." "No, you talked about it." "Mom, look around." Darren held out both hands. "It's junk." "Dad's workshop is full of junk." June looked at the tote. Darren did not know the chisel had been her 10th anniversary gift to Cal. He did not know she had stitched hems until 2 in the morning for 6 weeks to buy the set. What stopped her breath was not that he had forgotten. It was the possibility that she had never told him enough to remember. 3 months earlier, when Cal was still alive, the chisel had been on the bench beside a mahogany drawer front. His hands had grown too unsteady to use it, but he still wiped its blade with an oily rag every Friday. "Surface rust doesn't care if you're dying," he'd told June. She had been holding a bowl of chicken soup he no longer wanted. "That's beautiful. I'm having it engraved on your tombstone." He had smiled without opening his eyes. "Spell surface right. You spell it. I'm putting, here lies a stubborn pain in the ass." Fewer letters? That had earned her a real laugh, though it ended in coughing. She stood beside his stool and rubbed the narrow place between his shoulder blades, feeling every bone through his flannel shirt. The mahogany drawer belonged to Mrs. Haney on Old Mill Road. Cal had promised to repair its split corner before Thanksgiving. By then, Thanksgiving was 9 days away, and they both knew he would not see it. "Call Lena," he said when his breathing settled. "I did. She coming? Tomorrow. Good. She knows the grain runs mean on this piece." "Cal, and Jenkins's chair needs the rear stretcher turned. There's oak under the—" "Cal." He opened his eyes then. Gray, tired, still offended by unfinished work. "I am not discussing Mr. Jenkins' rear stretcher while your soup gets cold. It's already cold. Then I'm ahead of schedule." June had learned, during those final weeks, that ordinary irritation could be a form of mercy. People came into the house speaking softly and touching her elbow as if she were already a widow. Cal complained that she bought the wrong crackers. She told him to die with dignity and eat them anyway. He died on a Tuesday before sunrise with rain ticking against the bedroom window. Darren arrived 40 minutes later, hair wet, shirt buttoned wrong. He stood at the foot of the bed and said, "I should have been here," until June finally told him to stop making her comfort him. She regretted the sharpness by noon. By evening, she was grateful for it. Darren handled the funeral home, the death certificates, the calls June could not make without hearing her own voice turn strange. He brought coffee she didn't drink and threw away flowers as they browned. Paige stocked the freezer with containers labeled in block letters, though everyone seemed to contain noodles and cream. For the first 2 weeks, Darren came every day. On the 3rd week, he stood in the kitchen with a tape measure clipped to his belt and looked through the window toward the detached workshop. "You know that roof's going to need doing," he said. June kept scraping dried egg from a plate. "Roof's 8 years old. Workshop side is sagging. It has always looked like that. That doesn't mean it's good. Neither does your beard. But I've shown restraint." He rubbed his jaw. The beard was new, patchy at the corners, and made him look like he had lost a bet. "I'm serious, Mom. So am I." Darren smiled despite himself. For half a second, he was 25 again, sitting on her counter and eating sliced ham straight from the package. Then he looked back toward the workshop. "We need to start thinking long-term." June knew people use long-term when they wanted something unpleasant to sound responsible. "I'm thinking as far as Thursday," she said. "I have a furnace man coming. I mean the house. It's a lot for one person. There were 2 people here until recently. I noticed." His face tightened. "That's not what I meant." She dried the plate and placed it in the cupboard. "Then mean what you say." But Darren preferred proposals that arrived disguised as concern. He mentioned a senior apartment near his house, the kind with beige siding, weekly card games, and a little bus that took residents to the grocery store. He mentioned selling before maintenance ate the value. He said Paige had toured a place and found it cheerful. June asked whether Paige planned to move there. The subject went quiet for 10 days. June did not keep Cal's workshop locked. People had always wandered in through the side door, neighbors with loose table legs, contractors needing a blade sharpened, friends who came to borrow a clamp and stayed to discuss politics badly. After the funeral, the room simply stopped attracting footsteps. She went in every morning anyway, not to touch anything, not at first. She raised the blinds, checked the little propane heater, and changed the date on Cal's wall calendar because seeing the wrong day bothered her more than seeing his handwriting. 6 names remained in the squares after his death. Mrs. Haney, Drawer Jenkins, Chair. Lamp Base, Dorothy. 2 Planes, Martin Lena, Call About. Bench June called each customer and said Cal had passed, though most already knew. She offered to return their things. Nobody wanted to hurry her. Mrs. Haney cried so hard June ended up consoling her beside the unfinished drawer. The objects stayed, so did everything else. Then, that morning, June had gone to the dentist for a filling. Darren knew because he had offered to drive her, and she had refused because she still possessed both a license and a Buick. The dentist finished early. June stopped for milk, took the back road home, and found Darren's truck beside the workshop with its tailgate down. Now she stood beneath the fluorescent lights while 2 embarrassed men held Cal's drill press between them. "Set that down," she said. The younger man looked at Darren. "I said set it down." They lowered it onto the nearest clear surface, which happened to be the table saw. "Not there." June pointed. "On the stand by the window." "Mom," Darren said, "by the window." The men moved it again. Darren dragged a hand over his beard. "Ray, Manny, give us a minute." They escaped with the speed of people delighted not to belong to the family. June waited until the side door shut. Then she set her purse on Cal's stool and picked the chisel from the scrap tote. A chip near the brass ferrule caught against her thumb. "You could have cut yourself throwing it like that." Darren stared at her. "That's what you're worried about?" "I'm deciding where to begin. We agreed this needed cleaning out." "You said it needed cleaning out." "I said I would consider selling what I don't need." "You don't need any of it." That was quick. Took me 71 years to stop needing things, apparently. "That isn't what I said. You seem very interested in what you didn't say today." His cheeks reddened. Darren had always blushed when angry, a trait that had made teenage lying difficult and adult sales meetings interesting. He pulled out his phone and opened a photograph. "I've got someone willing to give $1,200 for the lathe and the big planer. Cash, no hassle." "You photographed Cal's machines to find out what they're worth, without asking. I am trying to keep you from getting taken advantage of." June turned the chisel in her palm. "By beating everyone else to it?" The words landed. Darren stepped back as if she had shoved him. "That's low. So is emptying my building while I'm having a tooth drilled. It's my father's stuff, too." There it was. Not the practical son, not the businessman, but the grieving man who had arrived with his shirt buttoned wrong. June lowered her voice. "It was your father's. Now it is mine." Darren looked at the cleared pegboard. "And what are you going to do with it, Mom? Honestly, you going to stand out here making cabinets?" "I might." "You can barely lift the mixer. The mixer lives in a bottom cabinet designed by an idiot. Dad designed that kitchen." "Exactly." He almost laughed. She saw him stop himself, as if laughter would weaken his case. His phone buzzed. He glanced down before turning it face down on the bench. June had spent enough years doing books for Cal to recognize the name of a supplier on the screen. A second message followed, then a third. "You promised this space to somebody," she said. "No?" "Darren, I told Paige we could maybe use it for storage, temporarily, for your business. It would save me $2,400 a month." The number hung between them. June understood then why he had brought 2 employees instead of coming alone. This was not an afternoon of helpful sorting. He needed the building emptied. He had already counted the savings. "You could have asked me. You would have said no. Then you had your answer." His mouth tightened. "I am trying to hold things together, and I am trying to bury my husband without having my life inventoried. That's not fair. Neither is putting an anniversary gift in scrap metal." Darren looked at the chisel. June had not meant to tell him that way. She had imagined telling him someday with the handle polished, perhaps while explaining which tools mattered and which could go. Instead, the fact came out flat and mean. "I didn't know," he said. "No. How would I know that?" She looked around at the bare patches, the stacked clamps, the labeled tubs. "You could have asked." For a while, neither spoke. Then Darren grabbed his sweatshirt from the back of a chair. "Fine. Keep all of it. Let it rust." He moved toward the door. "Take the tubs," June said. "What?" "The empty ones. Leave everything that was in them." "You expect me to put it all back?" "No. I don't want you touching anything else." He studied her face, perhaps waiting for her to soften. June wanted to. That was the worst of it. He was still her son, still the man who had held her upright at Cal's graveside when wet grass shifted under her shoes. But love was not permission. "Go home, Darren." He left with the tubs nested under one arm. Outside, he spoke to Ray and Manny. Truck doors slammed. The engine started, idled, then faded down the road. June locked the side door. The workshop looked as if someone had shaken it. Tools leaned in corners. Boxes blocked the aisle. One of Cal's hand planes lay upside down on the concrete, its blade exposed. June picked it up with both hands. "Idiots," she whispered, though she was not certain which man she meant. She put the plane on the bench, heel first. Then she removed her good sweater, folded it over Cal's stool, and studied the stripped pegboard. The first wrench gave a clean note when it met its hook. The next one did too. June did not have to think about where the wrenches belonged. Cal had traced their shapes on the pegboard in pencil during a January cold snap when work was slow. The outlines were smudged and childish, but each size had its place. 3/8, 7/16, half-inch. Darren's crew had bundled them together with a rubber strap, as if order were something that could be compressed. She hung the last wrench, stepped back, and felt no better. The trouble with an empty hook was that it accused you. Once she began seeing them, she could see nothing else. The saw cabinet stood open. Wooden-handled screwdrivers had been dumped into a cardboard box with putty knives and files. Cal's sharpening stones were stacked dry on top of a paint can, one dangerously close to the edge. June moved the stones first. The coarse one lived beside the sink, the medium and fine stones in a shallow drawer lined with green felt. Cal had cut the felt from a pool table someone left at the curb. He had carried half the table home until June made him return the slate. "A man could use that," he'd argued. "A man with a pool hall could. We have a room, we have a dining room. Nobody eats in there. We will if you put a pool table in it." He had laughed, but he returned the slate. The green felt stayed, appearing for years beneath tools and inside jewelry boxes. June pressed the stones into their familiar indentations and closed the drawer. Her good shoes began hurting before she finished the screwdrivers. She changed into Cal's old rubber-soled shop shoes, which were too wide and made her walk like a duck. She found his canvas apron on a nail and put it on without deciding to. The top of the bib smelled faintly of cedar and machine oil. Her phone rang at 6:20. Darren's name lit the screen. She let it ring. A text arrived a minute later. "I'm sorry it happened like that." June read it twice. The wording irritated her with almost artistic precision. It made the afternoon sound like weather. She set the phone face down and began sorting the files. At 7, she carried a mug of reheated coffee into the workshop and found the milk still sitting in the grocery bag beside her purse. She put it in the little shop refrigerator. Cal had kept bottled water in there, along with wood glue he swore lasted longer cold, and a jar of pickles June had spent 2 years looking for. The pickles were gone now. The refrigerator held glue, 3 waters, half a lemon wrapped in plastic, and a square of cheddar hard enough to repair furniture. June threw out the cheese. The lemon looked useful, so she kept it. By 8, she had cleared the main aisle. The hand tools were mostly restored, though several hooks remained empty. That did not necessarily mean anything was missing. Cal could leave a pair of pliers in the kitchen for 6 months, and sincerely accused June of moving them. The larger equipment was another matter. The drill press had been returned to its stand, but Darren's men had unplugged it and coiled the cord too tightly. The benchtop sander sat backward. Someone had rolled the bandsaw away from the wall and parked a stack of lumber in its place. June tried to push the stack. It declined. She stood with both palms against the top board, breathing through her nose. Her left knee had begun sending small electric objections up her thigh. The smart thing would be to stop. She knew that because she had told Cal the same thing approximately 12,000 times. She also knew he had rarely listened. "You're not winning this one," she told the lumber. The wheeled dolly hung behind the utility closet. June tugged it free, tilted it beneath one end of the stack, and raised the boards just enough to get the wheels under them. It took 4 attempts and language Cal would have admired. Then she used a length of steel pipe to lever the other end onto a low cart. The lumber moved 6 feet in less than half an hour. June sat on the floor afterward with her back against the bandsaw. Sweat chilled beneath the canvas apron. She could hear the kitchen phone ringing through the wall of the house, a distant nagging trill. "Everybody's very interested in me tonight," she said. The bandsaw offered no opinion. The caller turned out to be Paige. June listened to the message while eating peanut butter from a spoon at the kitchen counter. "Hi, June. It's me. I just wanted to check in. Darren came home pretty upset, and I think there may have been a misunderstanding. Call when you feel up to it. Love you." Paige had a soothing voice that made every sentence sound approved by a hospital committee. June liked her, usually. Paige remembered birthdays, sent thank you cards, and once drove Cal 4 hours to retrieve a used router he had no business buying. She also had a way of approaching disagreement, as if the other person had wandered out of a marked lane. June did not call back. She took 2 aspirin, drank water, and returned to the workshop. The next message came at 10:30. "We should talk tomorrow," June typed. "Yes." Then she added, "After you apologize properly." She did not send it. Cal had always said a person should never sharpen angry or text tired. She deleted the second sentence and sent only the first word. At 11, rain began ticking against the windows. The sound pulled at a place inside her that had nothing to do with tools. She stood at the main bench holding a wooden mallet and saw Cal's face on the last morning, not dead, not yet, but turned toward the window as if he could hear rain coming from a long way off. June set down the mallet too quickly. It rolled, struck a chisel, and sent the chisel sliding toward the edge. She caught it by the handle, the walnut handle. She had found it in a catalog at the fabric shop where she took alteration work. A set of 6, more expensive than anything sensible. Cal had owned chisels then, of course, but their handles were cracked or mushroomed from years of abuse. The catalog set had looked beautiful enough to eat with. When he opened the box at their kitchen table, he had gone quiet. June, who had expected delight, said, "If you hate them, I can send them back." "I don't hate them." "You're making a face." "I'm not making a face." "You are. It's your indigestion face." He had run his thumb over the smallest handle. "Nobody's ever bought me good tools." The sentence had angered her because they had already been married 10 years, and she had bought him plenty. A toolbox, a shop vacuum, that ridiculous Japanese saw. "Those weren't good?" she asked. "Those were things I asked for. This is different." She hadn't understood until years later. Asking proved a need. Being seen was something else. In the workshop, June wiped the chisel with the corner of Cal's apron. The blade had not been damaged by its fall into Darren's tote. She fitted it into the rack with the other 5. One handle was darker from use. One had the crescent scar. All 6 remained. By 1 in the morning, the pegboard looked right again. Not perfect. Right. June found the missing pliers under a folded drop cloth. 3 drill bits had been mixed into a jar of screws. The brass-backed saw belonged on the left side of the cabinet, though Darren had apparently mistaken it for something valuable and laid it in the cell tub. The truly valuable dovetail saw had been dropped in donate. "That's your father's eye for quality," June told the room. She heard Cal's answer so clearly, she nearly turned. Boy could sell air conditioning in January, though. The memory did not comfort her. It sat beside her. She worked around it. The lathe and planer had not been moved. Blue tape with prices remained stuck to both machines. June peeled the tape away carefully. Darren had written $500 on the lathe and $700 on the planer, matching the offer he had shown her, $1,200. Cal had paid more than that for the planer used 15 years ago. June knew because she had entered it in the business ledger and complained for 2 days. She folded the price tags adhesive side in and slipped them into her apron pocket. Not as evidence. She simply could not bear to see a price pasted to the things before she had decided what they were worth. At 2:15, she found herself staring at the unfinished mahogany drawer. Mrs. Haney's name was still written on a strip of masking tape across the back. Cal had already cleaned the break. The two pieces waited beside each other, the jagged grain fitting so neatly it seemed impossible they had ever been apart. June touched the split with one finger. She knew how to repair it. The knowledge arrived without drama. She could see the clamping setup Cal had planned, where the caul needed padding, how little glue the joint would take. She had repaired worse damage when she and Cal refinished furniture out of their first garage. Cal had been better at joinery. June had been better at veneer and color matching. Neither skill had vanished just because they stopped putting her name on invoices. But knowing how was not the same as promising she would. She turned off the bench light. Before leaving, she checked every drawer and cabinet. She photographed the room from 4 angles, then opened the small metal cash box Cal used for spare keys. The workshop key Darren carried had come from there years ago, meant for emergencies and borrowed tools. June took the remaining spare into the house. She slept until 9:40 in Cal's shop shoes and woke with a wooden mallet-shaped bruise against her hip. The phone had collected 2 calls from Darren, one from Paige, and one from a number she did not recognize. She made coffee before listening. The unknown caller spoke in a low, hesitant voice. "Mrs. Mercer, this is Ray Donnelly. I was there yesterday with Darren. I think I accidentally put one of your sockets in my sweatshirt pocket. I found it last night. I wasn't stealing it. I was holding it when you came in. I can bring it back." June called him first. Ray arrived 20 minutes later in a paint-spattered van. He stood on the porch holding a deep socket in his open palm like a child returning contraband, though he was at least 50. 5/8, June said. "Yes, ma'am. That explains the empty hook. I'm real sorry about yesterday. Did Darren tell you I'd agreed to clear the workshop?" Ray studied the welcome mat. "He said you were ready to let things go." June accepted the socket. "I suppose we've learned he and I define ready differently. He's under a lot of pressure. So am I." Ray nodded. "Yes, ma'am." She almost let him leave. Then she said, "Did he tell you what he planned to store here?" "Cabinets, mostly. Materials. He's losing the unit on Harlow at the end of the month." "Losing it?" "Giving it up," Ray corrected quickly. "That's all I know." June believed the second part more than the correction. After he left, she called a locksmith and arranged for the side door cylinder to be changed that afternoon. Then she stood in the workshop with the 5/8 socket in her hand. One hook remained empty. She filled it. Cal's calendar hung beside the door. 6 unfinished promises waited in his handwriting. June took out her phone and found Lena Ortiz's number. Lena answered on the 4th ring over the whine of a saw. "June, everything okay?" "No," June said. "Do you still need a bench?" The saw stopped. For several seconds, Lena said nothing. June could hear an air compressor cycling somewhere behind her. "What happened to Cal's bench?" Lena asked. "Nothing happened to it." "Then what are you asking?" "That depends. Are you still working out of that storage unit?" "It's a commercial workspace. It has an orange rolling door and no heat. It has a space heater, which you are not supposed to use." "Cal tell you that?" "You told me that. I tell you too much." June leaned against the workbench and looked at the 6 names on the calendar. "I have jobs here that were promised. I know Mrs. Haney wants her drawer back. I expect the others want their things too, no matter how kindly they said otherwise." "June, nobody expects you to finish Cal's work. I didn't say they expected it." The compressor cut off. Lena sighed. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to come look at what's here." "When?" "Today." "You're subtle as a nail gun. I'm recently widowed. It gives me privileges." A small laugh came through the phone. "I can be there around noon. Bring lunch. My cheese is structural." Lena arrived at 12:19, carrying 2 paper sacks and a battered red toolbox. She was shorter than June remembered, though that might have been because Cal was no longer beside her, making everyone look small. Her black hair was twisted through the back of a canvas cap, and pale sawdust clung to one sleeve of her work jacket. She paused inside the workshop. June knew what she saw. Cal's stool empty, his reading glasses still folded beside the vise. The old radio with masking tape over the tuning dial. The room was orderly again, but order could emphasize an absence as sharply as chaos. Lena set down the toolbox. "You put everything back. Almost everything." One socket took a trip in Ray Donnelly's pocket. Ray steals very selectively. He returned it. "That tracks." Lena walked to the main bench and touched the edge with 3 fingers. She had been at the funeral, but the funeral had contained flowers, folding chairs, and too many people wearing clothes that did not suit them. This was where she knew Cal. "I should have come sooner," she said. "I didn't invite you sooner. I didn't need an invitation before." Before was different. Lena nodded. She did not apologize again, which June appreciated. They ate turkey sandwiches at the finishing table. Lena had remembered that June hated mustard and forgotten that she liked pickles. June considered mentioning the jar Cal had hidden in the refrigerator, then decided against it. "What happened?" Lena asked. June told her about the tubs. She kept her voice even until she reached the anniversary chisel, when something rough entered it without permission. Lena unwrapped half her sandwich, then wrapped it again. "Darren knows tools. He knows modern tools. If it charges in 40 minutes and comes with a carrying case, he's an expert. He knows a chisel isn't scrap." He wasn't looking at the chisel. He was looking at empty floor. June told her about the storage plan and the unit on Harlow. Lena's expression changed, not into surprise exactly. "You knew?" June asked. "I knew his work was slow. Everybody's is. Ray said Darren's giving up the unit. Harlow's expensive. Maybe it makes sense. Maybe. It would make more sense if he asked the owner of the place he planned to move into." Lena picked at the seam of the paper sack. "He's scared. So am I." "I know. No, you know I ought to be. That isn't the same." Lena's hand went still. June regretted the bite in her voice, but not enough to take it back. Ever since Cal died, people had treated fear like an appointment she was expected to keep. A widow living alone should fear stairs, storms, strangers at the door, bad investments, spoiled milk, and the distance to the nearest hospital. June feared waking from a dream in which Cal was alive. She feared forgetting the exact blue of his eyes. She did not fear a bandsaw she knew how to unplug. Lena rose and carried the sandwich wrappers to the trash. "Show me the jobs," she said. They began with Mrs. Haney's drawer. Lena examined the break beneath a task light, turning both pieces without forcing them together. "Clean split," she said. "Hide glue? That's what I thought. Call's going to slide, not if we pin the padding." Lena glanced at her. "You been rehearsing?" "I have eyes. You also have a crack right through the corner." "I am familiar with the crack, Lena, just checking." Cal used to get offended when Wood disagreed with him. He considered grain a personal matter. The Jenkins chair needed more work. Its rear stretcher had split lengthwise, and one side joint had loosened. A paper tag tied to the arm read, "Oak under North Stairs. Match this." Though Cal had neglected to identify whose North Stairs. "That could mean the rack behind the furnace," June said. "His north or actual north?" With Cal, whichever direction proved him right. They found 3 oak blanks beneath the lowest rack. One was the correct thickness. Lena rolled it under her palm, checking for warp, then set it beside the chair. Dorothy's lamp base was straightforward. 2 small hand planes waited for sharpening. The cedar chest hinge had worn through its screw holes and would need plugs fitted before it could be reset. Lena studied the objects lined across the bench. "This isn't 6 jobs. The calendar says 6. The calendar lies. Drawer is 1. Chair is at least 3. Planes are 2, if Martin's picky, and Martin is always picky," Cal promised them. Cal also promised me he'd stop using dull jointer knives. Did he? No. There you are. A white van pulled into the drive at 1:30. The locksmith introduced himself as Curtis and smelled strongly of peppermint. He inspected the side door lock, quoted a price, and asked whether June wanted all 3 exterior workshop doors keyed alike. "All 3?" she said. Side door, garage entry, back service door. June had forgotten the narrow door behind the lumber rack. It had not been opened in years because ivy grew over the outside. "Just the side door," she said. Lena looked from Curtis to June. "Darren has a key? Not after today? You tell him? He'll understand when it doesn't work. That should go smoothly." Curtis pretended to be fascinated by his tool bag. He had removed the old cylinder when Darren's truck came up the drive. June recognized the bad wheel bearing before she saw him. Cal had been telling Darren to fix it since spring. Darren parked behind the locksmith's van and got out slowly. He wore work pants, steel-toed boots, and the expression he used when a customer had changed a project after signing the estimate. He saw Lena through the open door. "Of course," he said. Lena folded her arms. "Nice to see you, too." "What's he doing?" "His name is Curtis," June said. "He's changing the lock." Darren stared at the brass cylinder in Curtis's hand. Are you serious? Curtis put the cylinder in his bag and moved with renewed efficiency. You entered my workshop and started selling things, June said. Yes, I'm serious. I didn't sell anything. Because I came home. No, because I was sorting it, with prices. I got an offer. That isn't a sale. Lena stepped away from the bench. I'm going to take a look at the cedar chest. Darren's eyes followed her. Why is she here? She has a name, which you just heard me use. What's going on, Mom? June wanted to tell him, not because he was entitled to the information, but because she had told him nearly everything for 44 years. He was the person she called when the dishwasher made a burning smell. He called her when Paige's mother said something impossible, and he needed to know whether it was actually impossible. Habit pulled harder than trust. I asked Lena to inspect your father's unfinished work. For what? To see what can be completed. Darren looked at the drawer, the chair, and the lamp base. Then he laughed once without humor. You're opening the business? I didn't say that. You're changing locks and moving her in? Lena turned from the chest. Nobody is moving me anywhere. That bench has been empty since you left. Because your father wouldn't take rent from anybody else. You paid rent? Every month. Darren's gaze shifted to June. She could see him searching his memories for something that would make this less new to him. Cal had never discussed money with Darren unless criticizing the price of lumber. How long? He asked. 2 years, Lena said. You worked here 2 years? 3 days a week, usually while you were at your own jobs. Darren put both hands on his hips. So everybody had a plan for this place except me. No one had a plan, June said. People had arrangements. There's a difference. Curtis cleared his throat. Mrs. Mercer, if you want to test the key. He held out 2 fresh keys on a wire ring. June took them. Darren watched as she inserted one into the new lock. It turned cleanly. Smooth, Curtis said. Give it a little graphite once a year. June paid him by check. He loaded his tools, offered everyone a careful good afternoon, and left them with the door standing open. Darren looked down the drive after the van. You didn't have to do that. I did after yesterday. I said I was sorry. You said you were sorry it happened like that. What do you want? A written statement? No. I want you to understand what you did. I tried to clear a building so I could keep paying my employees. You tried to make that decision for me. I'm trying not to lay people off before Christmas. June's anger caught on the sentence. Ray's paint-spattered van, Manny gripping the drill press, men who had mortgages, truck payments, electric bills. She disliked Darren using them as weight against her, but she knew he had not invented them. How bad is it? She asked. His face closed. It's handled. That wasn't an answer. It's my business, and this is my workshop. Darren looked toward the room behind her. Dad would have let me use it. The words were quiet. They hurt more that way. June could have said Cal would have asked her first. She believed he would have. She also remembered the roof compressor he lent Darren without mentioning it. The money he shaved from an invoice when a neighbor's husband left. The many times Cal's generosity arrived home for June to budget around. We don't know what he would do, she said. That is one of the problems with him being dead. Darren flinched. June did too. He walked to his truck without another word. The bad bearing moaned as he backed out. Lena waited until the sound disappeared. You okay? No, good. I hate when people lie to that question. June looked at the new key in her palm. It was bright, sharp-edged, untouched by a pocket. I didn't invite you here to get between us. I know. And I'm not giving you the workshop. I know that too. I want to finish these 6 jobs. After that, we decide what stays, what sells, and whether there's enough work to justify keeping the lights on. Lena considered her for a long moment. You can't pay me in gratitude, she said. I wouldn't insult you. And I'm not taking over Cal's promises for free. Good. And if we do this, we price new work properly. No $20 chair repairs because somebody brings him tomatoes. They were excellent tomatoes. They were never excellent tomatoes. June held out the second new key. Lena looked at it, but she did not take it. What exactly are you offering? Temporary bench space. Half the income on Cal's 6 jobs. We each bring our own skill, and neither one tells the other what she ought to be afraid of. Lena's mouth shifted at one corner. 40%, she said. The jobs belong to the shop. 45, 40, and you let me throw away that glue in the refrigerator. The glue is still good. It has its own climate. 42 and a half. Lena took the key. You are exhausting. So was Cal. Yes, Lena said, closing her hand around it. But he made better sandwiches. That was because he put mayonnaise on everything, June said. Mayonnaise is not a skill. To a man raised on canned ham, it is. Lena brought her toolbox to the main bench and began taking out measuring tools, marking knives, and a small brass plane June had never seen. She arranged them in a row with their handles facing the same direction. You always this fussy? June asked. I learned here. Cal left coffee cups on the radial arm saw. I didn't learn it from Cal. The compliment warmed June in an inconvenient place. She turned toward Mrs. Haney's drawer before Lena could see. They agreed to begin there because the repair required more waiting than labor. June warmed the hide glue in Cal's little electric pot, while Lena cut pads for the cauls. The pot's cord had been repaired with black tape twice, then yellow tape over that. This is going, Lena said. It works. It's a fire with a lid. Cal knew exactly how to manage it. Cal once dried a wet glove in the toaster oven. The glove dried. The toaster oven caught fire. Briefly, Lena unplugged the glue pot. We buy a new one. With what? The money we earn. We have not earned money, then we use bottled liquid hide glue until we do. June disliked the bottle on principle. It looked too clean and required no ritual, no water bath, no testing between finger and thumb. But when she checked the expiration date, she found Lena had bought it 2 weeks earlier. You came prepared to say yes, June said. I came prepared to stop you from using prehistoric adhesive. That is not a denial. Lena smiled and squeezed a narrow bead along the break. Fitting the two pieces together took 4 hands and less than a minute. Keeping them together took an hour of adjusting clamps, swearing at the call, and discovering Cal had filed one clamp screw crooked. The first time they tightened it, the drawer corner slipped out of alignment. Stop, Lena said. I see it. Back yours off. If I back mine off, the joint opens. If you don't, the face shifts. June loosened the clamp. The joint opened. I said it would, and I heard you. You didn't sound convinced. I can hear and disagree simultaneously. Cal said that too. June's hand stopped on the wooden clamp handle. You don't have to bring him into every sentence. Lena looked at her across the drawer. A spot of glue shone on her knuckle. I know. The workshop seemed to contract around them. June heard the refrigerator hum, the rainwater dripping from the eaves, the distant rush of tires on the county road. I'm sorry, June said. You don't have to be. I'd do if I'm wrong. Were you? I haven't decided. Lena gave one short laugh, and the room widened again. They reset the clamps with a scrap of cork under the sliding caul. This time, the split closed so precisely, June had to tilt the drawer toward the light to find it. There, she said. Don't sound so surprised. I'm admiring my cork, my glue, Cal's clamp. They both went quiet. All right, June said. That one can stay. While the drawer cured, Lena inspected the shop's dust collector. Cal had disconnected one branch because the gate rattled. Fine powder coated the inside of the hose. This needs fixing before we run the planer, Lena said. We're not running the planer today. It still needs fixing. She made a list on the back of an old invoice. Glue pot, dust gate, new filter, 2 task lights, first aid supplies that had not expired during the Bush administration. June took the paper and added toilet paper. There is toilet paper, Lena said. There is one roll from a hardware store that closed 11 years ago. Fine. Toilet paper, coffee. You have coffee, I have coffee, the shop does not. We are 12 steps from your kitchen. The shop used to have coffee. Lena took back the pencil. Coffee. They spent the afternoon making the room less like Cal's private territory, and more like a place 2 people could work without injuring each other. June cleared a shelf for Lena's tools. Lena moved Cal's reading glasses into the top desk drawer after asking permission. They argued over 3 warped boards, compromised by cutting off the usable sections, and filled half a trash barrel with hardened finishes. At 4, the front bell rang. Cal had rigged the bell to a cord above the side door because machines drowned out knocking. Its cheerful jangle startled June so badly, she knocked a pencil to the floor. Mrs. Haney entered carrying an empty reusable grocery bag. She was 76, round through the middle, and dressed as if she had come from somewhere nicer than June's workshop. I saw the door open, she said. I hope I'm not interrupting. You are, June said, but come in. Mrs. Haney smiled uncertainly, then noticed Lena. Oh, I didn't know you were working, Lena offered. I was going to say here. She's both, June said. Mrs. Haney's eyes moved to the clamped drawer. Is that mine? It still belongs to you. You're fixing it? The glue is curing. We'll reinforce the corner tomorrow and touch up the finish. Mrs. Haney approached the bench with reverence more appropriate for a hospital bed. Cal said he could make the break disappear. Cal said many things while refusing to wear his hearing aids. He said the wood would remember where it belonged. June looked at the thin seam. That sounded like him, unfortunately. He was always so patient with my furniture, Mrs. Haney continued. My Howard used to say Cal could listen to a table better than most people listen to their wives. Howard was not setting a high bar, June said. Mrs. Haney laughed, then covered her mouth because laughter near grief still seemed to require an apology. She reached for June's hand. June let her take it. I wasn't coming to hurry you, Mrs. Haney said. I thought I should collect the broken pieces and stop bothering you. You didn't bother me. I left 3 messages. You bothered the answering machine. Mrs. Haney squeezed her fingers. You don't have to do this because he promised. June glanced at Lena. We have established that. Then why are you? The honest answer had too many edges. Because Darren had called it junk. Because Cal had died with work on his mind. Because June did not yet know whether waking the workshop was courage, anger, or a complicated way of refusing to enter the quiet house. The drawer was already here, she said. It seemed rude not to finish. Mrs. Haney nodded as if that made perfect sense. What do I owe you? Cal quoted 35, 25. Then why did you ask? I wanted to see if you knew. June stared at her. Martha Haney. Cal always forgot what he quoted. He wrote 35 on the tag. Mrs. Haney leaned over the drawer. The tag clearly read 35. Well, she said. His handwriting was terrible. Lena coughed into her fist. You can bring 35 tomorrow, June said. Tomorrow, if the finish behaves. Mrs. Haney's face changed. It was not the prospect of getting the drawer back. It was hearing a promise spoken in the room where Cal had once made them. I'll bring 40, she said. You'll bring 35, 40, and I won't tell anyone you're open. We are not open. Of course not. Mrs. Haney left with her empty bag and the satisfied posture of a woman carrying valuable news. By dinner, half the county will know we're not open, Lena said. June touched the clamp to make certain it was still tight. We need invoices. We need a price list. For 6 jobs? For the 7th person who walks through that door. There is no 7th person. The bell jingled. A man June recognized from the feed store leaned inside, holding a kitchen cabinet door with one hand. Sorry, he said. Martha Haney just called me. Lena looked at June. We're closed, June said. Sure. I only wanted to ask if Cal ever told you what causes this. The raised center panel had split along the grain. Someone had attempted to fill the crack with white bathroom caulk. June stepped closer to spite herself. Who did that? My brother-in-law. Does he dislike you? He means well. That is not an answer. The man grinned. Can it be fixed? June felt Lena watching her. She examined the panel without taking it from him. The split could be repaired, but the door would have to come apart. Old finish, brittle joints, cheap previous work. It was not a favor, and it was not $35. Leave your number, June said. We'll give you an estimate. Great, I'm Dale. I know who you are, Dale. You sell me bird seed. He wrote his number on the back of a feed store receipt. Lena placed the cabinet door on a separate shelf and labeled it Estimate Only in block letters. 7th person, she said after he left. He does not count. Martha sent him. Is that how numbers work here? Before June could answer, her phone buzzed. Paige had sent a message asking if she could stop by. June typed, I'm at the workshop. Paige arrived at 5:30 with a glass casserole dish covered in foil. She had changed out of her office clothes but still wore pearl earrings, small and perfectly matched. She glanced at the fresh lock, Lena's tools on the shelf, and the cabinet door marked Estimate Only. Well, she said, this has developed. Turkey tetrazzini? June asked. Chicken. Daring. Paige set the dish on the finishing table. Lena excused herself to wash brushes at the sink, though there were no brushes to wash. I came to apologize, Paige said. You didn't empty the workshop. No, but I encouraged Darren to. The directness took some of June's prepared anger away. Why? Because he told me you wanted to downsize. He said you'd discussed it. He discussed it near me. Paige closed her eyes briefly. That sounds like him. Did you know he planned to use the building? I thought you'd agreed. We gave notice on the Harlow unit last week. June looked toward the windows. Outside, dusk had turned the wet drive silver. He said nothing was final. The notice is final. We have to be out by the 1st. Why would he do that before asking me? Paige pulled out Cal's stool and sat. Because his father always rescued him before he had to ask. The sentence was not cruel. That made it harder to dismiss. June folded the edge of the foil over the casserole dish. Cal helped. Cal fixed things before Darren admitted they were broken. And you want me to do the same? No. Paige met her eyes. I want you to know why Darren believed you would. At the sink, water ran over Lena's unnecessary brushes. June thought of compressors lent. Invoices softened. Lumber loaded into Darren's truck while she rearranged the month's bills. Knowing isn't agreeing, she said. I know. Does he? Paige's sad smile looked older than her earrings. Not yet. Paige lifted one corner of the foil. Steam rose with the smell of onions and black pepper. It's going to dry out if we keep interrogating it, she said. June fetched plates from the house. Lena claimed she was leaving, then stayed, when Paige pointed out that the casserole could feed 12 or 1 cabinet maker. They ate at the finishing table around Mrs. Haney's clamped drawer, passing forks from Cal's desk and using folded shop towels as napkins. Paige took 2 bites before saying, This is strange. The chicken? June asked. Sitting here. You've sat here before. With Cal. Lena concentrated on her plate. Paige looked toward his stool, then at June. Sorry. Everybody can say his name, June said. We'll never get through Christmas otherwise. Nobody mentioned that Christmas was 7 weeks away. The stores had already begun playing songs about home. Paige scraped sauce from the edge of her plate. Darren remembers this room differently than you do. Most people do. Cal smoked in here for 12 years and still claimed he didn't. I mean, Darren remembers always being in the way. June set down her fork. He worked with his father. He got corrected by his father. He was learning. I'm not saying Cal was wrong. You are approaching it cautiously. Paige sighed. June, I came to tell you I was wrong. I believed you'd agreed to the move. I also think Darren honestly believed it because Cal trained him to hear help before it was offered. That is a remarkable sentence. I've been married to him 18 years. I collect remarkable sentences. Lena made a small choking sound that might have been laughter. June wanted to defend Cal. The impulse rose quick and hot, as if her husband were only in the house and could still be protected from an unfair account. She saw him teaching Darren to sharpen a mower blade, standing behind him with one hand over the younger hand. Don't fight the wheel, let it work. She also remembered Darren coming into the kitchen at 16 and throwing his safety glasses onto the table. Nothing I do is ever right in there. At the time, June had told him his father expected more because he knew Darren could do more. It was the sort of sentence parents used when they wanted pain to sound like confidence. He loved working with Darren, she said. I know. Darren was good. I know that too. Did Darren know? Paige looked at her, and June wished she had not asked. Lena rose to carry the empty plates to the sink. I'm officially not part of this conversation. You ate the chicken, Paige said. You're family now. Then I'm definitely leaving. She packed her tools, but left the brass plane and measuring knives on her new shelf. The second key disappeared into her jacket pocket. After a brief argument, she also took half the casserole. When Paige left, she hugged June at the side door. I'm not asking you to give him the building. That sounds like something said before asking for less. I'm asking you not to mistake panic for entitlement. June looked toward the drive, where Paige's taillights glowed red against the wet trees. Can it be both? Yes, Paige said. That's the problem. The drawer joint held overnight. June removed the clamps in the morning, while Lena watched. A line of dried glue had squeezed out along the repair, fine as a strand of thread. Lena handed June a sharp scraper. You want to do the honors? June took it. The wooden handle fit her palm differently from Cal's. Lena sharpened her tools to suit her own grip, steeper at the edge, polished almost excessively. June angled the scraper and drew it along the joint. A pale curl lifted. Again. The surface beneath was level and clean. She ran her fingertips over it, closed her eyes, and found the break by touch only because she knew where to look. Not bad, Lena said. High praise from the woman who condemned our glue. Our former glue. The chipped corner needed color. Cal had left 3 open jars of custom stain on the bench, each labeled M.H. Mahogany in his cramped handwriting. All three were different shades. Why? Lena asked. Because he mixed until something looked right and labeled every attempt as if it had. They tested the stains beneath the drawer. The first was too red. The second turned nearly black. The third blended until the repaired corner disappeared beneath a wash of warm brown. June smiled. Then the finish dried 2 shades lighter. Lena leaned close. We can glaze it. I know. You chose based on wet color. I know. Easy mistake. I know, Lena. June mixed burnt umber pigment into shellac, touched the corner, and made it too dark. She wiped it off, waited, tried again. Her fingers began to cramp halfway through the second attempt. The small brush trembled. Lena reached for it. I have it, June said. You're gripping too hard. I said I have it. Lena withdrew her hand. June completed the stroke. It wandered slightly beyond the repair. Neither woman spoke. June put the brush down before it could happen again. Her right hand had curled inward, 2 fingers refusing to straighten. She massaged the base of her thumb. Coffee, Lena said. That will not fix my hand. No, but it'll give us something else to criticize. They sat beneath the pegboard while the shellac dried. Cal's shop radio picked up one station clearly if the cord was draped over the lamp. A man discussed highway traffic in a voice too cheerful for the subject. Lena flexed her own hands around the coffee mug. I get that after routing, she said. Right thumb and first 2 fingers. You are 36. Wood does not check identification. I'm 71. I know. I cannot pretend I'll work the way I did at 40. I'm not asking you to. You reached for the brush. You were about to drop it. June looked at her. Lena drank coffee. We divide work by what we're good at that day, not by who wants to prove something. You practiced that sentence all night. It shows. Thank you. That was not praise. I'm taking it. By noon, the repaired corner matched. Not perfectly, but honestly. Under ordinary light, the break disappeared into the grain. Under the task lamp, a careful eye could find the line. Mrs. Haney arrived with $40 and a loaf of banana bread. I said 35, June told her. The bread is not legal tender. Then take 5 back. No. They argued until Lena took the bills, put $5 in Mrs. Haney's coat pocket, and placed the drawer in her grocery bag. Mrs. Haney touched the corner. I can't see it. Good, June said. Howard bought this desk when we moved into our first house. Cheap thing from a hotel sale. Cal kept telling me the veneer wasn't worth saving. The veneer is walnut, June said. Thin, but nicely matched. You fixed the top once. June looked up. Cal fixed it. No, you did. I brought it here when Darren was away at college. Cal had the flu. You laid all those little sandbags across the bubbles. Lena turned toward June. I had forgotten that, June said. I hadn't. Mrs. Haney took the drawer home. June waited until her car left before opening the metal cash box. She put $35 inside and wrote drawer, 35 on an index card. We need a real ledger, Lena said. I have one in the house. We need a shop account. For $35? For income and expenses that do not disappear into grocery money. June looked at the cash. Cal had kept accounts in notebooks, ledgers, and occasionally on the backs of envelopes. June had been the person who turned those scraps into numbers that made sense. All right, she said, separate account and insurance. We have homeowners insurance. That does not cover customers tripping over lumber or me cutting off an important part. Every part of you is important, especially the expensive ones. They spent an hour calling June's insurance agent, who used the phrase home-based commercial activity so often it began to sound like a diagnosis. The additional premium was manageable if the work remained small and customers stayed out of active machine areas. June wrote the amount beside the $35 income and drew a line under both. They were already behind. At 3, the bell rang twice in quick succession. Dale returned to ask about his cabinet door. Behind him stood Dorothy Bell with the damaged lamp base and a coffee cake. Dorothy had heard from Martha that Cal's shop was sort of open, but don't say open. It is not open, June said. Of course not, Dorothy replied. I'll come back during hours. We don't have hours. What time tomorrow? Lena turned away to hide her face. By the end of the afternoon, 3 more people had called. One needed a table leg repaired. Another wanted a set of kitchen knives sharpened, a service Cal had never offered. Martin phoned to ask whether his planes would be ready Friday and spent 7 minutes explaining the bevel angle he preferred, though it was written on the tag. June made a waiting list and marked every new request. Estimate only. At 5:10, someone tried a key in the side door lock. Metal scraped once, paused, then scraped again. June knew who it was before she opened the door. Darren stood outside holding a red plastic case. His old key remained pinched between 2 fingers. "You could knock," she said. "I forgot." "No, you didn't." He slid the useless key into his pocket. "My laser level is in here. Red case, top cabinet." June stepped aside enough to see the cabinet, but not enough to invite him in. The shelf held a red level case beside 3 yellow cases that belonged to Cal. "Which one?" "The red one." "I can see that." "Is your name on it?" Darren stared. "Seriously?" There was confusion over ownership yesterday. He turned the case toward her. Darren Mercer was written across the side in black marker. June handed it to him. Through the open door, he saw Lena fitting a new dust gate to the collector. He saw the invoice book. The coffee maker page had dropped off that morning, and Dale's cabinet door on the estimate shelf. "You really are opening," he said. "We finished one of your father's promises. For $35? $35 and banana bread. Good thing the roof doesn't need work." June's grip tightened on the doorknob. Darren looked ashamed almost before the sentence ended, but he did not apologize. He lifted the level case. "I have a bid tomorrow," he said. "Old house in Bellwether, full interior. Could keep us busy through February." "That sounds good." It could be. The words wanted to become a request. June waited. Darren shifted the case to his other hand. "I'll bring your key back. It no longer opens anything." "I know." He left. Lena waited until his truck rolled down the drive before switching on the dust collector. The repaired gate no longer rattled. It opened with a clean, efficient slide, and the machine pulled the loose sawdust from the floor. June watched the last gray curl vanish into the hose. On the estimate shelf, Dale's damaged cabinet door waited with its white line of bathroom caulk. "Full interior," Lena said over the fading machine. June picked up the door. "Let's find out what bad work costs to undo." Bad work, Lena discovered, cost Dale $185 to undo. He stared at the written estimate. For one cabinet door? For taking it apart? Removing your brother-in-law's contribution, repairing the panel, remilling the frame joint he split, reassembling it, and matching the finish, Lena said. Dale turned the door over as though a cheaper side might be hidden beneath it. Cal would have done it for $60. "Cal is the reason half this town thinks labor happens by magic," June said. "He charged me $40 to fix 2 drawers. Those were drawers. This is a hostage situation." Dale rubbed the streak of bathroom caulk with his thumb. "What if I just buy a new door? If you can match 30-year-old oak, go ahead." He went home to investigate. At 9 the next morning, he called and approved the estimate. June wrote a deposit receipt at Cal's desk, tore out the customer copy, and stared at the carbon impression beneath it. Mercer Repair, Refinishing was printed across the top in brown ink, followed by Cal's name and the home phone number. Her own name appeared nowhere. "More pressure," Lena said beside the Jenkins chair. "Excuse me, the longer you stare at it, the faster the ink develops." June closed the receipt book. "We'll need new ones. We can use these up. They have Cal's name. He paid for them. He would haunt us if we wasted paper." "That is true." June added J. Mercer beneath the printed name and put the receipt in the file. Dale's cabinet door required every dollar they had quoted. The caulk peeled away easily from the surface, then appeared inside the joint in thick white ropes. His brother-in-law had driven 2 finish nails through the back to pull the frame together. One had bent and buried itself in the oak. Lena held the door beneath the light. "He didn't repair this. He punished it." Meaning, well can be violent. "You talking about the door?" "Today I am." They worked with a nail puller, a soldering iron, and language unsuitable for customers. June photographed each stage for the estimate file. Cal had rarely documented repairs. He believed people's relief at seeing a finished object would erase their curiosity about the bill. At noon, Lena's phone rang. She looked at the screen and carried it outside. June did not try to listen, but the workshop walls were thin. "No, I paid through the month," Lena said. "That was our agreement." A pause. "I understand what your lease says. I'm telling you what you told me." Another pause, longer this time. I'll have it out. She came back in with her jaw set. The commercial workspace? June asked. The orange door has developed opinions. What happened? Owner rented the whole row to a plumbing company. I have until Sunday to clear my unit. You paid for the month. Cash, of course. I got receipts. Did he sign them? Lena looked at her. June sighed. Bring your things here. That wasn't our agreement. Your bench space was temporary. Temporary can begin now. My things are not one toolbox and a cheerful attitude. How much? Portable table saw, compressor, router table, lumber, 2 rolling cabinets, more clamps than a stable person owns. There's room along the west wall if we move the finishing rack. Darren needs this space. Darren wants this space. And I don't want to be the reason he can't have it. June picked a strand of caulk from the oak joint. You are not the reason. I know how he'll see it. So do I. Bring your things. Lena looked toward the shelf where Cal's unfinished job stood. I can rent somewhere else. With the 42.5% you haven't earned, low blow. Accurate blow. Lena's mouth tightened, but after a moment she nodded. Only the tools I need. The lumber can go in my sister's garage. Bring the clamps. I said I have a lot. Cal's clamps are older than you and twice as stubborn. That describes most of this room. By Sunday afternoon, Lena's equipment occupied a neat strip of wall marked with yellow floor tape. June insisted on the tape after tripping over an air hose. Lena installed a rack for her clamps and labeled 2 rolling cabinets with her initials. The sight of another person's name in Cal's workshop unsettled June more than she expected. L.O. black letters on blue painter's tape. She stood before them while Lena unloaded router bits from a milk crate. Too much? Lena asked. No. That sounded like too much. It sounded like me adjusting. Lena set down the crate. I can keep the cabinets in the garage. The garage is damp. I can remove the labels. Then we won't know whose things they are. And apparently this family requires assistance. The labels stayed. Work settled into a rhythm that was less graceful than either woman admitted. June opened the shop at 8:30 and objected when Lena arrived at 8:40. Lena pointed out they had no posted hours. June posted hours. Tuesday through Friday, 9 to 4. Appointments preferred. Mrs. Haney crossed out preferred with a pencil and wrote ignored. Martin collected his hand planes and tested both blades on a scrap of pine. He squinted along the translucent curls, searching for a complaint. Bevel feels a hair steep, he said. It is 25 degrees, Lena replied. You put a micro bevel on it, at 30. I generally like 29. June held out her hand. Give it back. Martin pulled the plane to his chest. I didn't say it was bad, then pay the woman. He paid $40 and brought them 2 more planes 3 days later. Dorothy's lamp base went home with a new felt bottom and a repaired socket mount. She cried, apologized for crying, then asked whether June could look at a card table. No, June said. Yes, Lena said at the same time. They accepted the card table for an estimate. By the second week, the metal cash box contained enough to replace the glue pot, buy a dust filter, and make the first insurance payment. June opened a separate checking account for the shop and ordered basic invoices without a printed name, because she had not decided what to call anything. Lena wanted Mercer Workshop. June thought it sounded like a place that sold decorative signs saying, Gather. We could keep Mercer Repair and Refinishing, Lena said. Cal's business, your bookkeeping, your customer list, your house, his reputation. Reputation doesn't have fingerprints. June did not answer. She filed the bank receipt in a new folder and wrote shop across the tab. The Jenkins chair tested their new rhythm. Lena turned the replacement stretcher from the oak blank beneath Cal's north stairs. June fitted the tenons by hand, shaving them with the walnut-handled chisel that had landed in Darren's scrap tub. Her hand cramped twice. Both times, she set the chisel down before Lena could reach for it. When the joint finally seated, tight and square, June felt a satisfaction so clean it frightened her. For 40 minutes she had not thought about Cal's last breath, Darren's key, or the dent on the empty side of her mattress. There had been only oak, steel, and the need to remove one thin shaving at a time. Then the chair stood upright on the floor, and she wished Cal could see it. Grief returned not as a wave, but as a hand settling on her shoulder. Lena spun the chair gently. All 4 feet held. Jenkins will complain the new stretcher is too pretty, she said. He complains professionally. He's gifted. The side door bell jingled. Darren entered carrying a cardboard tray with 3 coffees. He stopped when he saw Lena's cabinets, the compressor, and the forest of clamps along the west wall. "You moved in. I brought tools," Lena said. "Same thing with better branding." June took the coffees before he dropped them. One was plain black for her, one contained enough cream for Lena, and the third smelled of hazelnut. "You remembered," Lena said. "I remember things." His eyes went to the labels on her cabinets. June handed him the hazelnut coffee. "How was the bid?" "I got it." For one bright second, pride pushed everything else aside. June hugged him. Darren held the cardboard tray away from their bodies and laughed. "Careful. Hot." She stepped back. "February? Maybe March if they add the second floor. Who's the client?" "Couple from Chicago. Bought the Bellwether place on Ashcombe." June knew the house. Everyone did. A broad brick home built when door casings were made from trees large enough to have opinions. It had stood empty for 4 years. "Full interior?" she asked. "Kitchen, baths, floors, paint. Preserve what we can." Which usually means preserve what's practical. Lena drank her coffee without expression. Darren unrolled several printed photographs on the finishing table. Tall paneled doors, curved stair trim, baseboards with deep molded profiles. The dining room walls had been opened in places, revealing old plaster and uneven framing. June touched one photograph. "They want those doors kept? All of them. They're mortise and tenon. I know what they are. Somebody planned the kitchen ones to fit after the house settled. I saw that. New square jambs won't solve old crooked doors." "I know, Mom." She lifted her hand from the photograph. Darren's pleasure had vanished. He rolled the pictures tightly and secured them with a rubber band. "I didn't come for an inspection." "What did you come for?" "To tell you I got it, and to ask if we can be adults about the building." June looked at Lena's strip of yellow floor tape. "How much space do you need?" "All of it for 3 months. Cabinets, flooring, trim bundles. I'll pay $600 a month. The shop insurance does not cover commercial storage for another business." "Then I'll add coverage. We're working here now. You finished Dad's 6 jobs? 4. The chest is still waiting, and Jenkins hasn't collected the chair. You know what I mean?" "Yes," June said. "You mean Lena's work counts less because you did not know about it." Darren's gaze moved to Lena. "This was supposed to be temporary." "It is," Lena said. "Until when?" "Until June and I decide otherwise." His face flushed. "So my father's apprentice gets a vote, but his son doesn't." June set her coffee down. "The person paying for bench space gets a voice in shop business." "Paying what? $40 a month?" "Do not talk to her as if she is taking charity. I'm offering you $1,800. You are offering $1,800 for space that is no longer available." Darren rolled the photographs tighter. "Dad would have cleared it. Your father is not available either." Silence followed. He tucked the plans under his arm and left his coffee on the table. June listened to the bad bearing fade down the road. Lena peeled the lid from his untouched cup. "Hazelnut. He hates hazelnut. He brought it for himself." "No." June stared at the pale coffee. "He brought 3 because he thought Paige would come with him." "Then why didn't she?" June looked at the door. Because Paige knew what his request would sound like. Because Darren had wanted reinforcement and lost it before he arrived. Because somewhere between their house and the workshop, husband and wife had disagreed. On the finishing table, one photograph had escaped the roll. It showed a damaged walnut newel post at the Bellwether house, split beneath an ugly patch of wood filler. June picked it up before the coffee ring reached it. Darren had not noticed the photograph was missing. She wiped the corner dry and studied the split. "Bad repair," Lena said over her shoulder. June slid the picture into the desk drawer. "It's not our repair." Lena let that sentence sit between them. Then she said, "You should give him the photograph. He left it. You put it in a drawer to keep coffee off it. Coffee is no longer near it." June closed the desk drawer. "The newel post remains not our repair." The distinction held for 9 days. During that time, Jenkins collected his chair and complained that the replacement stretcher made the old ones look shabby. He paid without being asked twice, which June considered a declaration of love. The cedar chest hinge went home properly seated in new plugs. Its owner brought a jar of peach preserves that Lena refused to enter as income. "That makes all 6, Lena said after the chest left. 7, if you count Dale. Dale is new work. Then we are officially beyond our mission. We were beyond it when you let Dorothy leave that card table." The table stood upside down on padded blocks. It was mahogany veneer over poplar, with folding legs that opened reluctantly and a cloudy white ring in the finish. Dorothy had asked them to make it nice enough for company and accepted an estimate of $120. June had thought the ring would lift with gentle heat and alcohol vapor. It did not. She thought a light wash would blend the surrounding finish. It turned the entire top the color of canned gravy. Lena came back from lunch, set down her tool bag, and stared. "What did you do?" "It looked better wet. Most disasters do. It can be corrected. Yes. By stripping it." "I am aware. They stripped it." The veneer was thin enough that June could feel every pass of the scraper in her teeth. When the old finish was gone, a darker patch remained around the former water ring. June mixed stain from memory and tested it on the underside. The sample matched perfectly. The tabletop turned orange. Lena stood with both hands on her hips. "How?" "The base wood under the veneer affected the test." "You said the underside was the same?" "I was mistaken." June disliked the taste of those words. She disliked the silence after them more. They stripped the table again. The second stripping softened a strip of veneer near one edge. Lena noticed it lifting and stopped before the damage spread. They injected glue beneath the bubble with a syringe and covered it with waxed paper and a warm caul. "We have $26 in materials and 9 hours and a $120 job," Lena said. "I know. That is before fixing what we did." "I know. We need to call Dorothy. We will give it to her when it is right, and tell her why it's late." June cleaned the stain brush harder than necessary. "It will be 2 days. You can't promise that." "I know how long finish takes. You knew how the stain would look, too." The brush struck the side of the jar. Brown droplets freckled June's apron. Lena went still. June set the brush down. Her face felt hot, and the workshop suddenly seemed too small for both of them. "Go ahead," she said. "Say it. You made a mistake. 2. You made 2 mistakes. I can count." "Then stop acting like I'm accusing you of a crime." June wiped the spots from her apron. They did not come out. Lena pulled off her cap and pushed both hands through her hair. Cal did the same thing. "I asked you not to bring him into every..." He would rather ruin a piece twice than call the customer once and say he needed more time. "It made me crazy." The anger left June so quickly it made her tired. "He hated disappointing people," she said. "He disappointed them worse by pretending nothing had gone wrong. He learned that from somewhere. So did you, apparently." June looked at the clamped edge of Dorothy's table. "All right," she said. "Call her. You call her. You wanted the call. I want you to stop using me as the person who says unpleasant things." That landed more accurately than June liked. She phoned Dorothy and explained the delay. She did not mention canned gravy, but she admitted the color had failed and the finish needed to be removed again. Dorothy listened, then said, "Honey, it's a card table. I've eaten Christmas dinner off a door laid over 2 filing cabinets. You're not angry? I will be if you hurry it and make it worse." Afterward, Lena wrote an additional 8 hours in a column marked Shop Error. They would charge Dorothy the original estimate and absorb the rest. "Why write down time we cannot bill?" June asked. "So we learn what our mistakes cost." The numbers were rude, but useful. By the time the table finally held a deep brown finish without orange or cloudy patches, June had stopped hating it. She and Lena delivered it to Dorothy's dining room, opened the legs, and watched her press one palm against the top. "This is too nice for cards," Dorothy said. "Then we fail," June replied. Dorothy paid $120 and slipped an extra 10 into Lena's hand. "For aggravation." "We don't accept tips," Lena said. "You accept preserves, not as income." Dorothy closed Lena's fingers over the bill. "Buy yourselves wine and discuss accounting." Back at the workshop, they put the $10 in a coffee tin marked aggravation. The bell jingled while June was writing the label. Ray Donnelly entered carrying 3 wide planer blades wrapped in a bath towel. He wore a Mercer Renovations jacket with paint on both cuffs. "Darren around?" June asked. "He's at Bellwether. How is it going?" "Going. Ray." He placed the bundle on the bench. "Could you sharpen these?" Lena unwrapped one blade and held the edge to the light. It was nicked in 4 places. "What did you hit?" she asked. "Old square nail. With all 3 blades? Maybe more than 1 nail." June looked at the Mercer Renovations logo on his jacket. "Are these Darren's?" "Company's." "Does he know you're here?" Ray scratched beneath his cap. "He said to get them sharpened." "Did he say to bring them here?" He didn't say not to. Lena folded the towel over the blades. We don't have the grinder set up for these. Cal did them. Cal sent them to a sharpening service after he chipped his white wheel, June said. Ray looked relieved. Can you send them wherever he did? We can give you the number. Darren needs them tomorrow. Then Darren should have made the call yesterday. Ray let out a breath. Nothing in that house is square. We tried milling casing on site, but the generator's surging, and now the planer's down. The owners added the library, once all the original trim matched where walls came out. June pictured the photographs. Curved profiles. Old walnut. Doors adjusted through a century of settling. Is Darren replacing the trim? She asked, trying not to. What is he using for the profiles? Ray's eyes moved toward the cabinet of molding planes. June stepped between him and the cabinet without meaning to. Ray raised both hands. I didn't ask. Good. The bell rang again. Manny entered, spotted Ray, and swore under his breath. Boss said you were going to the sharpening place. I came for the number. Manny held a folded sheet of paper. He told me to pick up the old molding planes, hollows and rounds. He told you I agreed? June asked. Manny looked at Ray for rescue. Ray studied the planer blades. He said they were his dad's, Manny replied. They were. Now they are mine. Manny's shoulders dropped. Mrs. Mercer, I'm not getting in the middle of this. You are standing in the exact center. I can leave. That would move you toward an edge. Lena turned away, but June saw her smile. Manny left without the planes. Ray took the sharpening service number and carried the wrapped blades after him. At 5:30, Darren called. Why did you embarrass my crew? June put the phone on speaker and continued entering Dorothy's payment in the ledger. Lena stood at the sink, very carefully not listening. I did not send your employees to ask for tools they had no permission to take. They weren't taking them. They were borrowing them. Borrowing begins with a question. I tried asking. You changed the subject to Lena's rent. You asked for the entire building. I need 6 planes, Mom. Which 6? Hollows and rounds? Whatever sizes match the casing, so you don't know. A pause. I have profiles here, he said. We'll match them? With hand planes, your crew is never used. I know how to use them. June remembered Darren at 17, producing a length of molding, so smooth Cal had called Paige, then merely Darren's date to brag about it. Darren had rolled his eyes through the call and kept that strip of molding in his bedroom for years. Bring the samples, she said. Great. I'll come in the morning. That was not permission to take tools. What is it then? Bring the samples. We will look at the work and give you an estimate. Silence. You want to charge me. I charge Martha Haney. I'm your son. Yes. Dad's tools are sitting there because he taught me to use them. Dad's tools are sitting here because I put them back after you priced them for sale. At the sink, the water stopped. Darren's voice lowered. This is Lena, isn't it? No. You were never like this about the shop before she showed up. I was exactly like this before she showed up. You simply did not ask. She moves her entire business in, and suddenly you're charging family by the hour. Her entire business fits against one wall. She is using you. Lena faced them. June's hand tightened around the pen. Choose your next sentence carefully. She lost her space and found a widow with an empty building. You're lonely, you're angry at me, and she is turning both into free rent. 42.5% is not free. Of what? A card table and some sharpening? June closed the ledger. She looked at the insurance certificate beside it, the bank folder, the column of deposits and materials, the calendar where new estimates extended into December. None of those things proved she was not lonely. She was lonely. She had talked to Cal's apron 2 mornings ago, but loneliness did not make every choice foolish. Bring your samples tomorrow, she said. You may look at the accounts while you're here. I don't care about the accounts. You care enough to call my business a trick. Your business? June heard the disbelief. Yes, she said. Mine. She ended the call. Lena dried her hands slowly. You don't have to show him anything. I know. Then why offer? Because he thinks you took advantage of an empty room. June opened the desk drawer and removed the photograph of the split newel post. And because, she said, his full interior is beginning to come apart. Lena took the photograph from June and studied the split. Fillers fresh, she said. Darren's? Hard to tell from a picture. Wrong material either way. June returned it to the drawer. We'll let him explain. You sound eager. I am practicing calm. How's that going? Poorly. Darren arrived at 8:12 the next morning, 48 minutes before the posted opening time he had once mocked. He carried 3 lengths of old molding under one arm and a paper grocery sack in the other. "I brought donuts," he said. June unlocked the side door. Bribery before business hours. "I'm adapting." The molding samples left dust on his jacket. One was painted pine, one walnut, and one an unidentified hardwood beneath 4 layers of varnish. The longest piece had a deep concave curve beside a narrow bead. Lena was already at her bench, replacing the iron in a smoothing plane. She looked at the grocery sack. What kind? Glazed, chocolate, and one of those twisted things with cinnamon. Your meeting may proceed. Darren set the samples on the finishing table. I need 24 feet of this one, 16 of this, and maybe 8 of the walnut. Maybe? Lena asked. We're opening another section of wall today. Could be more damage behind it. June pulled the samples toward the task light. The profiles were not standard, though the pine casing came close to a common OG. Its bead had been cut by hand and wandered slightly over the length. When does the client expect it? She asked. First batch Friday. It was Tuesday. Lena bit into a chocolate donut and looked at him. What? She chewed. I don't speak with my mouth full. You're communicating fine. June measured the deepest profile with Cal's contour gauge. 1 wire stuck, leaving a small gap. New gauge goes on the list, she said. Can we deal with my problem first? Darren asked. Your problem is demonstrating why the gauge matters. He moved to the molding plane cabinet and stopped before opening it. At least he remembered that much. I can rough the profiles with a router, he said. I need the planes to tune them. Which sizes? June asked again. Darren fitted a small radius template against the concave section. 5/8 hollow. 3/8 round for the step. Maybe quarter. Maybe as expensive in walnut, Lena said. I know. How many people on your crew can sharpen a molding plane iron? I can. Who else? Darren wiped dust from one sample with his thumb. Ray, if I set it up. So you want 3 planes, a slipstone set, a marking gauge, and bench space. I want to borrow tools. You also need somewhere to use them. The job site. Old steel at a site where your planer found square nails? Lena shook her head. No. They're tools, not museum pieces. Exactly. Tools require care. Darren looked at June. Does she answer for you now? No, June said. She answers questions she knows more about. He laughed sharply. Here we go. June opened the desk drawer, removed the shop folder, and placed it in front of him. What's this? The thing you said you did not care about. I still don't. Then don't accuse anyone based on it. She showed him the bank deposits, supply receipts, insurance premium, and the sheet dividing income after direct materials. The numbers were modest enough to be almost embarrassing. Their balance would not have covered 1 month of the rent Darren had offered, but it was positive. Lena's 42.5% appeared beside June's equal share, with 15% held for overhead. Darren turned one page. You're paying yourself $87 for the Jenkins chair? That is my portion. How many hours did you spend? Too many. You're making less than minimum wage. Currently? And she's making the same? Currently. Lena wiped chocolate from her fingers. I have outside jobs, from the storage unit you lost, from contractors who bring pieces to me, same as before. He looked back at the ledger. What happens when something goes wrong? June showed him the column marked shop error. His mouth twitched when he saw Dorothy's table. Do not smile, June said. I'm not. You are. What color was canned gravy? Lena laughed before June could glare at both of them. Darren closed the folder. His amusement faded as quickly as it had come. You're doing all this for a few $100s. We are doing all this to see if it can become more than a few $100s. And if it doesn't, then we stop without lying to ourselves. The answer quieted him. June had not said it aloud before. The workshop was not sacred. The business was not guaranteed. Keeping every tool in its place that first night had been a refusal, not a promise to preserve the room forever. Some machines might still be sold. Some work might prove beyond her. The choice would simply be hers. She reached into the desk drawer again and gave Darren the Newell Post photograph. You left this? He stared at it. I wondered where it went. What happened? Old filler cracked when we pulled the carpet. Ray cleaned it out. We tried a flexible epoxy patch, but it looked like hell. That's because the split moves under the handrail. I figured that out. After the epoxy? After the epoxy. Lena held out her hand for the picture. You'll need a fitted insert across the damaged section, then color work. The crack below can close with glue if the post isn't loose. It's not loose. You check beneath the stairs? Yes. Actually check or kick it? Darren looked offended. Actually? June remembered him at 12, insisting he had actually washed his hands because he had held them under water. Cal had made him return to the sink with soap. The resemblance between his boyhood indignation and his adult face was so exact, she had to look down. What are you smiling at? He asked. Nothing useful. Lena laid the photograph beside the walnut sample. We can handle the post repair, but it has to happen on site. Great, I did not say when. I have a walkthrough next Wednesday. June opened the appointment book. The week already contained Dale's pickup, 2 chair estimates, a refinishing job from Mrs. Haney's cousin, and Martin's endless planes. Monday morning, she said. Darren nodded. And the molding planes? They stay here, June said. Mom, you may use them here. I don't have time to run back and forth. Then mill the stock close at your shop and bring it once. I'm leaving the Harlow unit Friday. Your current problem remains your current problem. His face reddened. Lena moved the donut sack away from the samples. There is another option. We set up a jig for the router table. Rough everything here, then hand finish. Faster than trying to make a site table behave. How much? June and Lena exchanged a look. Shop rate is $55 an hour, Lena said. Materials separate. For each of you? For the shop. If we both work, the result arrives sooner. Darren stared as if he had caught them stealing. You're charging strangers more than that. We quoted Dale based on the job, June said. Hourly would have cost him more. And the newel? Estimate after we see it. I could buy new knives for my shaper. You could, Lena said. They won't arrive by Friday. His jaw worked. June could see numbers moving behind his eyes. Labor standing idle. Owners arriving for a walkthrough. Custom knives and expedited shipping. The danger of damaging irreplaceable material. I'll pay $55, he said. You'll pay a deposit, June replied. He looked at her. All new work pays a deposit. I brought donuts. We accept those separately. Darren took out his wallet. How much? $150. I have 80. Then 80 today and 70 when you bring the stock. He placed 4 20s on the table. June wrote a receipt in the old book and added J. Mercer beneath Cal's printed name. Darren watched her. You did Dad's books, didn't you? For 28 years. I thought he did them. He thought he did too. June gave him the receipt. They spent the next hour planning the setup. Darren's measurements were good, his cut list clear. When Lena questioned the amount of extra walnut he had allowed, he explained where the grain reversed near the profile, and why one board would likely tear out. Lena considered the sample, then nodded. 10% might still be tight. I have another board. Bring it. June stood between them, surprised by how quickly hostility gave way to work. Not trust, not affection. Work had its own truce. Darren opened the molding plane cabinet and removed the 5/8 hollow. He checked the wedge, eased out the iron, and sighted along its edge. You keep it too proud, it chatters, he said to Lena. I know. I'm just saying. And I'm just hearing you. He looked at June. She always like this? She learned here? This time Darren laughed. The sound caught June off guard. It belonged in the workshop, though she could not have said when she last heard it there. Then Lena pointed to the honing station. Show me your edge. Darren's smile vanished. Excuse me? You said you can sharpen it. Show me. I have a job site to get back to. You also have 24 feet of molding to finish by Friday. He looked at the iron in his hand. June knew the expression. Cal had used the same challenge when Darren was 17. Back then, Darren had stormed out, returned after dinner, and worked until midnight to prove him wrong. Now he took off his jacket. Your slipstones are in the wrong drawer, he said. They are in the drawer I chose, June replied. Dad kept them left of the sink. Your father kept half a lemon beside wood glue. Darren found the stones, filled a small cup with honing oil, and sat at the bench. His first strokes were too quick. Lena said nothing. June watched him slow on his own. The shaped iron made a low whisper against the stone. Darren tilted it toward the task light, checked the reflection, and worked the curve again. His hands remembered more than his anger wanted to admit. June returned to Dale's cabinet door and began cleaning the last trace of caulk from the joint. Across the room, Lena leaned over Darren's shoulder. "Your heel is high," she said. "It isn't." "It is." Darren adjusted by a fraction. The next stroke sounded smoother. June did not look up, but she heard it. She heard the old steel, the careful pressure, the reluctant beginning of correction. For the first time since Cal died, 3 people worked in the room without anyone trying to decide what it used to be. The walnut arrived the next morning in Darren's truck, wrapped in a moving blanket and strapped so tightly June could see the pressure marks along one edge. "You know straps can dent wood," she said. "I put cardboard under them. On one side, it rode 8 miles, not across the country." Lena came out carrying a moisture meter, put it on the rack. Darren looked at the meter. "Seriously? Old house? Heated shop? Exterior lumber yard?" "Yes. It's kiln dried." "So are crackers. They still get soft." June opened the garage door while Darren and Ray unloaded 6 boards. Ray avoided looking toward the molding plane cabinet, as though June might suspect him of planning another raid. "Blades come back?" she asked. "Tomorrow," he said. "Expedited?" Ray nodded toward Darren. "Boss paid enough to have them delivered by angels." Darren set his end of a board on the rack. "Put it in your aggravation tin." "You know about the tin?" Dorothy told Paige. "Nothing in this town can be contained, except a profitable business," he muttered. June heard, but Lena was already writing moisture readings in chalk on the board ends. 9%, 10. One read 12 near a knot. "This one rests," Lena said. "I need every board," Darren replied. "You brought the extra because you expected one to be unusable. I expected tear out." "Congratulations. You've been spared." Darren glanced at June. "She enjoy this much at home? I have no idea what she does at home." "Peaceful things," Lena said. "Bird watching, needlepoint, correcting strangers' measurements." They began by tracing the original profiles onto stiff card. Cal had made templates from thin plywood, each labeled with the room and date. Darren tried to use one from 1997 that looked close until June held it against the bellwether casing and showed him a 16th-inch gap near the bead. "Nobody will see that after paint," he said. "The walnut is not painted. I meant the pine. The pine has 4 layers now. The owners are stripping it." Darren looked at her. "How do you know?" "It is visible in the photograph." Lena took the old template from him. "Make a new one." He did, muttering. They rough-cut the pine profile with 2 passes on the router table. The machine produced a high, hard whine, unlike the quieter rhythm of Cal's hand tools. Fine chips struck the clear guard. Darren fed the stock while Lena controlled the outfeed. June stood by the switch and watched their hands. The first length emerged with a ridge along the cove. "Bit shifted," Darren said. "Fence flexed," Lena replied. "You locked it?" "I built the fence." "That does not answer the question." "It answers more than yours." June switched off the machine. "Are we correcting wood or auditioning for marriage?" Both stared at her. "Check the fence," she said. One mounting bolt had loosened half a turn. Darren tightened it. The second pass came clean. Hand finishing slowed everything. The old pine sample had been made when profiles were expected to reveal a craftsman's decisions. Its curves were not geometrically pure. A powered cutter produced a shape that looked right from 6 feet away, and wrong when laid beside the original. Darren worked the hollow plane along the cove. The first stroke caught, leaving a shallow bruise. "Skew it," Lena said. "I am. More. I know how to use it. Then use it." His next stroke cut smoothly. June fitted the fresh molding against the sample. The bead was still too crisp. She reached for a small shoulder plane, then stopped when her hand tightened. Darren noticed. He took the plane without comment and eased the edge through 3 controlled passes. "Again," June said. He took one more. "Stop." He held the pieces together. The profiles met. Ray, passing behind them with an armful of offcuts, whistled. "That's dead on." Darren ran his thumb along the transition. Pleasure moved across his face before he could hide it. "Dad would say the bead is fat," he said. "Your father said every bead was fat," June replied. He distrusted abundance. They completed 18 feet of pine by evening, short of the promised 24. One board had split around a hidden pitch pocket. Another length tore out because Darren fed the grain backward after insisting the direction would hold. He stared at the ragged cove. I marked the grain, Lena said. The mark was on the other end. The arrows point both ways. They're pencil, on pine. Would you like them illuminated? June wrote 6 feet beside, shop error. Darren saw her. That's my error. It happened in the shop. Take it out of what you charge me. That would be charging you twice. I ruined the stock, and you brought extra. He looked toward the board Lena had rejected for moisture. I need this tomorrow. The owner's walkthrough is Wednesday, June said. I told them the first batch Friday. You also told them you would preserve what was practical. This is preservation. Darren leaned both hands on the bench. He was tired enough that the skin beneath his eyes had turned gray. Fine dust coated his beard, making the patchy corners look almost even. My crew needs it to trim the dining room Monday, then pick it up Monday morning. I'll come Sunday. The shop is closed Sunday. It's my job, Mom. It is our work. He lifted his head. Lena removed her safety glasses. We can finish tomorrow. Not tonight. Everybody's tired, and tired people put fingers where stock goes. I can finish it. With whose machines? Darren's face hardened. For a moment, June thought he would walk out and find some louder, faster way to solve the problem. Then he looked at the torn length in his hands. 9 tomorrow? He asked. 9, Lena said. He arrived at 8:45 with breakfast biscuits. By noon, the first batch was complete. At Bellwether on Monday, June understood why Darren had panicked. The house had a wide central hall crowded with ladders, plastic sheeting, and stacks of numbered doors. Plaster dust softened every surface. Through an opening where a wall had been removed, she saw Ray and Manny installing the molding they had made. The new piece met the old casing above a doorway. Even unfinished, the joint nearly disappeared. Darren stood beneath it with Paige. She wore office slacks under a borrowed work coat and held a clipboard. Looks good, she said when June approached. It looks correct, Darren replied, which meant he was pleased. Paige kissed June's cheek. I hear you're charging us. You hear accurately? Good. Darren gave his wife a look. What? Paige asked. I'm tired of favors nobody discusses until Thanksgiving. The owners arrived before June could answer. Evelyn Shaw was a physician in her late 50s with close-cropped silver hair. Her husband, Simon, had spent his career designing museum exhibits and examined every joint as though a label might be attached. Simon ran one finger beneath the new dining room casing. This section is replacement, Darren pointed. From here to the corner. Simon stepped closer. I can't see the transition. That's the objective. Who milled it? Darren glanced at June and Lena. My mother's shop, he said. Not my father's old tools, not a friend helping. The words landed quietly. Evelyn smiled at June. You're June Mercer? I am. Cal repaired a walnut sideboard for the previous owner. We found his card in a drawer. June did not know about the sideboard. The discovery felt like receiving mail forwarded from a country that no longer existed. He did good work, she said. He did. We hoped he might consult before we heard. The sympathy in Evelyn's face was gentle and brief. She did not touch June. Lena led them to the newel post. Up close, the failed epoxy repair looked worse than the photograph. A gray patch filled the split without matching the walnut in color or movement. Beneath it, the post flexed almost imperceptibly when Darren pressed against the handrail. You said it wasn't loose, Lena told him. It isn't loose. It moved. The whole railing moved. That movement is the problem. Darren crouched beside the bottom step. Blocking underneath is solid. June put her hand on the walnut. The old finish was worn silky where thousands of palms had rounded the corner. Damage crossed the grain several inches below the rail. Someone had once driven a screw through the decorative collar, then hidden the head with putty. Who did the epoxy? She asked. I did, Darren said. Ray, halfway down the hall, became deeply involved with a box of nails. You? June had assumed one of the crew. I was trying to keep the schedule. He said it without excuse. That surprised her. Lena tapped the patch with the handle of a screwdriver. It all has to come out. Then we close what we'll close. Fit a walnut insert for the lost material, stabilize the rail from below, and color everything together. How long? Evelyn asked. 2 days in place, plus shop time to shape the insert, Lena said. Possibly 3 if the old finish resists. Simon looked at Darren. Is that within your schedule? Darren's eyes went to June. She saw the request there, but also something new. He was waiting for her answer. We can begin next Monday, June said, after we give you a written estimate. Evelyn nodded. Do it properly. Darren released a breath. Then Simon pointed toward the numbered doors stacked in the parlor. What about those? June walked over. Each door was solid pine beneath old paint, with peg joints and raised panels. Several bottom rails showed water damage. One had been shaved so severely it no longer met the floor at one corner. We were going to square the jambs and fit them, Darren said. You square those jambs, you'll lose half the original casing, June replied. That was before the trim requirement expanded. Simon folded his arms. We want to retain the casing. Darren's jaw tightened. Lena examined the nearest door. Then, each one gets fitted to its own opening. Repair loose joints first, hang it, mark it, plane to the jamb, no bulk cutting. There are 11 doors, Darren said. 12, Paige said from her clipboard. The powder room door is new. It's in the contract as salvage if possible. Darren closed his eyes. June looked down the hall at the matched molding, then at the doors. This was no longer a small favor involving 3 planes. The workshop could help, but every hour belonged to existing customers too. Dale wanted his cabinet door. Martin had added chisels to his planes. Dorothy's cousin expected a table estimate. We are not absorbing your schedule, June said quietly. I know, and we are not taking 12 doors for $55 an hour without seeing what each needs. I know. He sounded irritated, but he did not argue. Evelyn and Simon moved toward the kitchen with Paige. Ray followed, leaving June, Darren, and Lena beside the stacked doors. Darren rested his palm against the most damaged one. Dad would have come over after dinner and handled this. June saw the old expectation in him, stripped of accusation now. Not greed, not laziness. The faith of a son who had been rescued often enough to mistake rescue for the natural shape of love. Your father did things after dinner, she said, because I did his invoices at midnight. Darren looked at her. He helped you, June continued, and I helped him help you. That was the arrangement, though nobody had the manners to call it one. I didn't know. No, we made sure you didn't. The admission left a bitter taste. She had wanted Darren grateful without ever allowing him to see the cost clearly enough to choose differently. Lena moved away to inspect the door labels. Darren brushed dust from the rail. What do we do now? You send us the door schedule. We inspect each one and price the repairs. Your crew handles removal and installation. You work with us on fitting so your labor stays your labor. You want me in the shop. I want you responsible for what you promised. He nodded once. From the kitchen, Paige called his name. Darren started toward her, then stopped. You really think the molding looks right? June glanced at the joint above the dining room door. The bead is a hair fat. His face fell. Then he saw her smile. You're terrible, he said, so I've been told. He walked away laughing under his breath. June rested her hand on the newel post again. The gray epoxy patch was ugly, but it had revealed the deeper movement. Sometimes a failed repair did that. It showed exactly where pressure had been traveling all along. The written estimate took most of the next afternoon. Lena priced each door by condition. 2 needed bottom rail repairs. 3 had loose mortise and tenon joints. 1 required a narrow patch where somebody had installed a deadbolt, with what appeared to be a cold chisel and personal anger. The remaining 6 could be fitted by Darren's crew after the hinges were cleaned and reset. June added materials, shop time, site time, and an allowance for whatever the paint concealed. Darren sat across from them at Cal's desk and read the total twice. 3,100, 3,180, June said. For doors I already own. You own damaged doors. I can buy 12 new solid core doors for less. Then do that. They won't match, then don't do that. He looked at Lena. Does she negotiate? Constantly, just not in the direction you mean. Darren turned to the second page. What's this? Your labor credit, June said. If you work the fitting hours we listed, it reduces the shop portion by $660. You're charging me for my own time and giving it back? We're showing what the job costs. Your labor is not free simply because you own the company. I know my labor isn't free. Good. We have made progress. He leaned back in Cal's chair, which squeaked beneath him. I have crews at 2 other sites. Then use your labor credit to pay one of them. That's not how payroll works. No, but that is how cost works. Darren stared at the estimate again. The defensive color in his face faded into concentration. He took out a pencil and calculated along the margin. I can give you me and Ray for removal and rehanging, he said. Manny stays on trim. You repair the 6 bad ones here. We fit all 12 on site. Lena nodded. That saves transport risk on the good ones. And cuts shop labor, not repair labor. I know. June heard the difference. A month ago, I know it meant stop telling me. Now it sometimes meant I have considered what you said. He signed the estimate. The first payment came from Mercer Renovations by company check. June deposited it into the shop account and bought walnut, finishing supplies, and a replacement first aid kit that contained no ointment from the previous century. The newel post repair began Monday morning. Lena removed the failed epoxy with heat and narrow carving tools. Darren worked beneath the staircase, adding concealed blocking where the handrail connection had loosened. Every few minutes, dust drifted through gaps in the risers onto his hair. You look frosted, June told him. Useful observation. I could have said, elderly. You're enjoying this job too much. June sat on a low stool beside the post, with finished samples arranged across a drop cloth. Bellwether's old walnut had darkened beneath layers of amber shellac, wax, hand oil, and thyme. New walnut looked purple beside it. You can't stain age into wood, Cal used to say. You have to suggest it politely. June mixed a warm brown dye, tested it on an offcut, and waited for it to dry. The color went flat. Needs red, Darren said from beneath the stairs. You cannot see it from there. I can see the sample. You can see the bottom. It's too green. Lena held the offcut near the post. He's right. Darren's muffled voice came through the riser. Could someone record that? June added 2 drops of red. The fitted insert took most of the morning. Lena shaped it so the grain followed the curve of the post, then feathered its edges into undamaged wood. June colored the patch in thin layers, stopping between coats. Twice she reached for more pigment, and twice Lena moved the jar out of reach. Let it dry, Lena said. It is dry. The surface is dry. The color is still shifting. You enjoy controlling jars. I enjoy not stripping work twice. Darren crawled out from beneath the stairs, carrying a drill. Canned gravy? You may go back under. By late afternoon, the repair had disappeared from 5 feet away. Up close, the new wood remained visible if a person knew where to look, a fitted scar rather than a painted lie. Evelyn examined it beneath the hall light. I can tell it was repaired, she said. Darren tensed. Good, Evelyn continued. I didn't want it made to look new. June liked her more each time they met. Simon tested the rail. It held without movement. That feels completely different. Darren stabilized it from underneath, June said. Simon looked toward him. Nice work. Darren brushed dust from his sleeve. Thank you. On the drive back, he followed June's Buick to the workshop, instead of turning toward Bellwether. 6 doors waited on padded racks, labeled by opening and repair. Ray arrived 10 minutes later with sandwiches and the careful expression of a man who had been told not to borrow anything. They began with the loose dining room door. The joints had opened at both corners. After removing the pegs, they used padded clamps to ease the frame apart without splitting the paint. Dirt, brittle glue, and 1 dead beetle fell from the mortise. Ray peered into the opening. He part of the estimate? Shop overhead, Lena said. The lower rail had shifted enough that the tenon shoulders no longer seated. Darren cleaned old glue from the mortise while June inspected the tenon. Somebody planed this, she said. Recently? Darren asked. Long ago. Chisel marks. He looked. Dad's? Your father did not work on every object built before 1990. Hard to tell around here. June reached toward the mallet rack. The small wooden mallet she wanted was not there. She checked beneath the bench, then opened the lower cabinet. What? Lena asked. Light mallet. Top shelf by the sawtill. That is the carver's mallet. You want the beech one? Maple. Darren leaned past her and took a scarred mallet from behind Cal's block plane. Its head was slightly crooked, with 1 chipped corner and a handle too thick near the end. This? June had forgotten it was there. Darren turned it under the light. At 19, he had made that mallet from a firewood split, refusing help because Cal had criticized his first layout. The mortise through the head wandered off center. The handle had required 3 attempts. When he finished, Cal tested the balance and said, Next time, leave yourself more meat at the shoulder. Darren had thrown it into the scrap barrel. June had retrieved it after he left for work. She remembered setting it on Cal's bench and saying, You could tell him it's good. Cal had run his thumb over the crooked head. It's not good. It's his first. That doesn't make it good. It makes it his. The next morning, the mallet had been hanging on the rack. Now Darren brushed sawdust from the chipped corner. He kept this, he used it. There are 4 better ones. 5, if you count the carver's mallet. I don't, then 4. Darren tested its weight in his palm. The handle fit his adult hand better than it had at 19, though it remained clumsy. He said the shoulder was weak. It was. Thank you, Mom. It still is. He reinforced it with glue and a pin. Darren found the tiny oak pin near the head. When? After you left it in the scrap barrel. His eyes lifted to hers. I threw it out. You were dramatic. I wonder where I got that. Not from me. Ray and Lena found separate reasons to work at the other end of the door. Darren looked back at the mallet. I thought he hated it. He hated the shoulder. That is an insane distinction. It made sense to him. Did he ever tell you he used it? No. I heard it. Darren waited. It has a flatter sound than the beach mallet, June explained. You can tell from the kitchen. He struck the chisel handle lightly. The mallet gave a dull, familiar knock. June had heard that sound through the wall for years, without thinking about the rejected piece in his hand. Cal had used it to chop hinges, tap joints, and fit drawers. Not every day. Often enough. Darren set it down carefully. Why didn't you tell me? I forgot the story. I remembered the sound. That doesn't make any sense. Most things you keep do not stay for the reason you thought. He picked up the mallet again, but his attention had shifted from the door. Dad was different with everybody else, he said. June knew better than to answer quickly. With customers, he'd explain for an hour. With Lena, apparently he rented a bench and taught her half the shop. With me, it was always again or not like that. He believed you could take it. That's what you used to say. I know. It didn't help then either. June sat on the edge of the bench. Her knee ached from the hours at Bellwether, and a streak of walnut dye had settled into the lines of her left hand. He could be hard on you, she said. Darren gave a humorless laugh. Careful! That almost sounded true. It is true. He was also proud of you. Quietly. Too quietly. Darren rolled the mallet handle between his palms. June continued before she could retreat into defense. He gave work away. He lent equipment we needed. He stayed here when there were things at home he should have done. Sometimes I admired him for it. Sometimes I wanted to lock this door and throw his shoes into the road. Darren looked startled. You never said that? I said plenty, not to you. You always backed him. I translated him. For me or for yourself? The question hurt because she did not know. Lena came over carrying the cleaned mortise. We need to decide whether we're repairing this door today or establishing blame back to the Nixon administration. Darren's mouth twitched. June stood. The door. They reset the tenon with fresh glue. Darren used his crooked mallet to seat the joint, tapping until the shoulders closed. Stop, June said. He froze. Look at the top. A hairline gap remained at the opposite corner. Darren adjusted the clamp before striking again. The frame came square. Ray checked the diagonals and announced they matched. Lena marked the job sheet, then pointed to the mallet in Darren's hand. Back on the rack when you're done. I know where it goes. June looked at the empty hook above the bench. Darren looked too. Not yet, she thought. He laid the mallet beside the door instead, ready for the next joint. There were 5 more damaged doors waiting, and some lessons required more than one chance to put down correctly. The next joint took half the time. By the 3rd door, Darren stopped arguing when Lena marked a repair sequence. By the 4th, he was making his own notes in the same order. Loosen, clean, dry fit, square, glue, clamp. His handwriting slanted harder than Cal's and took up twice the room. Ray handled the stripping and hardware. June cleaned hinge leaves at a small bench near the window, where morning light showed cracks around screw holes. Darren plugged the worst ones with fitted maple, not golf tees or toothpicks, both of which they found inside the Bellwether doors. Professional work, Lena said, holding up a paint-covered tee. Probably improved somebody's short game, Darren replied. The shop grew crowded, but not chaotic. Customer pieces occupied labeled shelves. Bellwether doors stood in padded racks along the garage bay, arranged in installation order. Darren's stock no longer spread beyond its yellow tape. When his crew brought tools, they signed them in and out on a clipboard. June hung beside the side door. Darren made a face at the clipboard. Then Ray misplaced a hinge template for 40 minutes, found it beneath his jacket in the truck, and signed the sheet without further comment. They did not finish every door on the original schedule. The powder room door had rot beneath the bottom layer of paint. deep enough that a new lower rail was required. June called Evelyn before work began. Evelyn approved the additional cost and 3-day delay. "You could have just fixed it," Darren said after the call. Then charged her, "What?" "We knew she'd approve." "That is not the same as permission." Darren glanced at the telephone. "You practicing something?" "Constantly." June's hands forced their own schedule. 2 hours of scraping hinge paint left her thumb stiff. A morning spent coloring the newel insert made her fingers twitch around a coffee cup. She began alternating detailed work with estimates, phone calls, and the books. She hated the accommodation less when she stopped naming it surrender. Lena did not praise her for stopping. She simply moved the next piece to her own bench and asked June to check the color when her hand loosened. Darren noticed the exchange and, to his credit, did not offer to carry anything June had not asked him to carry. The final repaired door returned to Bellwether on a cold Thursday morning. Darren and Ray hung it in the upstairs bedroom, while June and Lena watched the gaps. The house had settled toward the central chimney, pulling the jamb out of square. The door fit at the top and dragged at the bottom corner. Darren marked the high spot with a pencil. "Take an 1/8, Ray said. "Take a 16th, June said. "We'll be here all day." "We will be here longer if daylight shows under it." Darren removed the hinge pins and laid the door across padded horses. He reached for his power planer, then looked at the old grain rising near the corner. "Hand plane," he said. Lena gave him a low-angle jack plane from the tool case. He worked diagonally across the bottom edge, taking thin shavings. The first curled around his wrist. He paused after 4 passes and rehung the door. It still dragged. Ray leaned against the wall. A man could age here. "You arrived aged," Darren said. They removed the door again. The second fitting cleared the floor, but struck the stop halfway closed. Darren found the contact mark, shaved the edge, and rehung it a 3rd time. The door swung through the crooked opening without resistance. Its latch met the keeper with one quiet click. Ray bowed toward it. Darren stepped back, sweat darkening his collar despite the cold room. Nobody touched the house. Evelyn and Simon inspected the completed work that afternoon. Simon opened every repaired door, closed every repaired door, then opened 2 of them again. Evelyn ran her hand along the newel post and tested the railing with more force than necessary. The molding transitions held. The new bottom rail on the powder room door matched the old paint lines. Nothing looked newly perfect. The house looked cared for. Evelyn signed Darren's completion sheet on the hall table. "We'll release the next payment tomorrow," she said. "And we want to discuss the library built-ins after the holidays." Darren's shoulders lowered a fraction. The payment would not make him rich. June knew enough about his business to understand that much. It would cover payroll, materials, and the expensive storage problem he had created for himself. The bellwether work would keep his crew occupied through winter, which mattered more than any single check. Simon turned to June and Lena. "Do you take private restoration work, or only projects through Mercer Renovations?" Darren answered before June could. "They take their own work. You book through the shop." June looked at him. "What?" he said. "Appointments preferred." Simon asked for a card. They did not have cards. Lena tore a blank invoice in half and wrote the shop number on it. "Professional," Darren said. "We spent our branding budget on your doors," she replied. Paige brought dinner to the workshop that evening. Not a casserole this time. She arrived with fried chicken, coleslaw, biscuits, and a bottle of sparkling wine that had been sitting in their refrigerator since a contractor gave it to Darren 2 Christmases ago. "We finally found something it was good enough for," she said. They ate at the finishing table with Ray, Manny, and the repaired cabinet door Dale had failed to collect before closing. June poured sparkling wine into paper coffee cups. Ray gave a toast about old doors, patient women, and invoices that could cause chest pain. Darren held up his cup. The invoices were fair. Everyone went quiet. "Did you hear that?" Lena asked June. "I believe so. Could be the dust collector." Darren opened his checkbook. "Let me ruin the moment." He paid the final shop invoice in full. June looked at the amount before closing the ledger. It was the largest payment the revived workshop had received, but almost all of it already had a destination. Lena's share, June's share, materials, insurance, utilities, overhead. Honest money became smaller when introduced to honest expenses. Still, the balance was no longer embarrassing. Manny and Ray left first. Paige followed after helping Lena wrap leftovers. She kissed Darren's cheek and told him not to stay all night talking about wood. "Mom talks about wood," he said. "I know, it's spreading." Lena zipped her jacket. "I have a pickup at 7. Lock the door when you're done." She did not ask whether June wanted her to stay. Darren sat at Cal's desk. The crooked maple mallet lay beside the receipt book, where he had left it after the last door repair. "Storage is handled," he said. June stacked the paper cups. "At the workshop? At the old feed warehouse. Fenced bay, no heat, no office. 1,700 a month. Better than 24. Worse than 600. You mean worse than the 600 I refused?" "Yes." She waited for bitterness. It did not come. "I should have asked before giving notice," he said. "Yes." "I thought you'd say yes." "I know. I thought Dad would have said yes." "He might have." Darren looked at her, surprised. "He might also have said yes and told me afterward," June continued. "Then I would have found a way to make it work and resented both of you. I didn't know you resented me, not you. The assumption. That sounds like a useful distinction. I am learning from your father." He turned the mallet by its handle. "I hated this place sometimes." June pulled Cal's stool closer and sat opposite him. "I know. No, I mean, I hated it. When I was 15, I wanted it to burn down. You told me you wanted lightning to hit it. I was trying to avoid sounding responsible. You were never convincing." He gave a quiet laugh. It faded. "Dad was always here. If he wasn't here, he was fixing something at somebody else's house. Everybody thought he was the most generous man alive. He was generous, I know. That was the problem." June looked at the outlines behind the tools. The workshop had provided their mortgage payment, Darren's first used car, vacations they planned around customer deadlines. It had also taken Saturdays, dinners, and one anniversary weekend when Cal drove 3 counties away to repair church pews after a pipe burst. "I helped him do it," she said. "You keep saying that, because you keep blaming a dead man who cannot defend himself. He had you for that." The sharpness surprised them both. Darren rubbed his forehead. "Sorry. Are you?" "For that, yes." "And for emptying the workshop?" His hand lowered. June waited. "I'm sorry I came in here without your permission," he said. "I'm sorry I told Ray and Manny you were ready when you hadn't agreed. I'm sorry I put prices on things I didn't understand." The specificity loosened something inside her. Darren looked at the chisel rack. "When I called it junk, I knew it wasn't junk." June said nothing. If it was junk, then Dad wasted all that time. If it was junk, I didn't have to admit I wanted more of that time for me. He rolled the mallet under his palm. "And I needed the space. I was scared, and I made that your emergency. Both things are true." June had spent weeks wanting him to understand. Now that he did, satisfaction would have been indecent. She reached across the desk and covered his hand. "Your father should have told you he was proud." Darren looked down at their hands. "Was he?" "Insufferably. He had a strange way of showing it." "Yes. You always said he was hard on me because he knew I could take it. I was wrong to say that." His fingers moved beneath hers. June continued. "I should have told him to be kinder. I should have told you when his generosity cost us something, instead of pretending it never did. We wanted you to admire him. Sometimes we made you feel guilty instead." Darren's eyes had gone wet. He blinked and looked toward the pegboard. "You're not supposed to improve at this after he dies. Poor timing runs in the family." He laughed once and wiped his cheek with the heel of his hand. After a while, he said, "What happens to the shop?" "I don't know. You've got work into January. We have more requests than hours. That is not the same as having a sound business. Simon will send people. Simon will send people who expect museum work and own museum money. I do not know which worries me more. You could expand. Why does every man who sees $3 together want them to expand? Because $2 will buy a donut. Not a good one." Darren smiled. June looked around. The old drill press needed a safer switch. The dust collection had 1 reliable branch and 2 that leaked. A threshold at the back door caught her shoe every morning. They had 3 machines that performed overlapping work and consumed half the garage bay. The room could not remain exactly as Cal left it. She knew that now. Returning every tool had restored her right to decide, not created an obligation to keep every object forever. "Lena has talked about paid bench rentals," she said. "1 or 2. Carefully. You'd let strangers work here?" Lena was a stranger once. She wasn't to Dad. Neither were half the people who walked through that door. Your father collected people. Darren tapped the mallet head against his palm. You could do classes. I am not teaching 6 people to make cutting boards. Repair nights. People bring a chair or a sticky drawer. You show them enough not to use bathroom caulk. June pictured Dale's brother-in-law and shuddered. Public safety has merit. You'd need better lighting. And a ramp at the side door. He nodded toward the machines. Sell the big planer? Absolutely not. You have the smaller one. The smaller one chatters. Because Dad installed the feed roller backward in 2014 and refused to admit it. June stared at him. Backward? I fixed it last week. You touched the planer? With Lena standing over me like a prison guard. That explains why it sounds better. Darren stood and returned the crooked mallet to its hook. The head settled against the pencil outline, slightly off-center because it had never been made square. I need 1 chisel for the last hinge recess at Bellwether, he said. Mine is too short. June looked toward the walnut-handled set. Which size? 3/4, the anniversary chisel. I know. She studied his face, then took a sign-out card from the clipboard. Darren filled in the date, tool, job address, and his name. When will it come back? She asked. Monday. You will not throw it. I will not throw it. You will not sharpen it on that awful belt machine. I know how to sharpen a chisel. That was not my question. He tucked the chisel into its leather sleeve, by hand only. June watched him leave with it. On the rack, the empty slot showed pale against the maple. The absence did not accuse her this time. His name was on the card. The tool had a purpose and a way home. Darren returned the chisel Monday at 4:52. June was closing the cash box when the bell rang. He came in carrying the tool in its leather sleeve and the completed sign-out card. 8 minutes to spare, he said. I did not set a time. You set a tone. He removed the chisel and laid it across his palm. The blade was clean. A faint line of graphite marked the back from fitting the bellwether hinge. Any damage? June asked. None. Did you sharpen it? Didn't need it. She examined the edge anyway. Darren waited without complaining. Acceptable, she said. That is all a son wants from his mother. Then your needs have simplified. He returned the chisel to the correct slot, not with ceremony. He pushed it in handle first while asking whether she had any fried chicken left. June corrected it after he went home. The blade belonged down, handle up, so a hand could see what size it was reaching for. The next morning, she and Lena spread 3 months of shop records across the finishing table. The business had made money, though less than the cash balance suggested. Once they accounted for their unpaid planning hours, wear on Cal's machines, heating the detached building, and the many cups of coffee Mrs. Haney drank without buying anything, profit narrowed considerably. We can keep doing this, Lena said, or we can build something that pays us. Doing this seemed ambitious a month ago. It was. Now people think we fix anything made before 1985. Dorothy asked about a toaster. She was joking. She brought it in her car. June looked at the waiting list. Refinishing alone could fill 6 weeks. Small repairs fit between larger jobs, but customers often arrived expecting their loose chair to be tightened while they stood beside it telling a story. They needed limits. They set minimum charges, deposit rules, and realistic hours. June raised their repair rate from $55 to $65 and spent a full afternoon feeling criminal. Nobody objected except Martin, who objected to weather. Lena proposed 2 paid benches, 1 permanent, and 1 available by the week. Rent would cover utilities and part of the insurance. Prospective renters would need experience, references, and the patience to endure June, explaining where rags belonged. June added that last requirement herself. They kept the name Mercer Repair and Refinishing for customer work. Over the door, Darren made a plain wooden sign that read Mercer Workshop, because he claimed they needed something people could see from the drive. June accused it of looking dangerously close to a sign that might say Gather. It doesn't say Gather, Darren replied. It has that type of personality. You want me to paint no gathering underneath? Yes. He did not. The machines required harder choices. Cal had owned 3 drill presses, 2 belt sanders, a mortising machine nobody had used in 9 years, and enough clamps to restrain a bridge. June believed each one had a reason for staying. Lena made her explain the reasons aloud. The smallest drill press had belonged to Cal's uncle. Do you use it? Lena asked. No? Does it work? Loudly. Sell. The old belt sander had a cast iron base June liked. Do you use it? The base is excellent. Sell. The mortising machine had cost too much, had never cut square, and occupied 4 feet of wall. June put a green tag on it herself. They sold 7 duplicate or unreliable machines over 6 weeks, not for a windfall. Old equipment brought old equipment prices, especially when buyers arrived prepared to discuss every scratch. The money paid for brighter task lights, sealed dust collection branches, and a proper exterior ramp at the side door. Darren built the ramp at the shop's standard labor rate. June paid his invoice. He accepted the check without suggesting she keep it, which pleased her more than a discount would have. Lena's permanent bench became official. A furniture conservator named Marisol rented the weekly bench 2 Fridays a month for upholstery frame repairs. She was 58, sang badly with the radio, and labeled every container in Spanish and English because she said glue had no business being mysterious. On the first evening of each month, Mercer Workshop opened for repairs people could learn to make themselves. Adults arrived with sticky drawers, loose table legs, dull garden shears, and lamps that should have been unplugged years earlier. They paid a small bench fee, bought materials, and did their own work under supervision. Dale brought his brother-in-law. June made both men remove bathroom caulk from a practice joint before allowing them near furniture. "You're enjoying this," Dale said, "immensely." Christmas arrived with sleet against the workshop windows. June closed for 4 days, then discovered she disliked the silent room more than she disliked being busy. She did not reopen early. That mattered. She spent Christmas Day at Darren and Paige's house. Darren carved the turkey badly. Paige gave June a heated shop mat for her feet. June gave Darren a new set of slipstones, then worried the gift was too pointed until he held up the smallest one and said, "This is the size I was missing." Nobody said Cal's name until dessert. Then Paige told the story of the 4-hour router trip. Darren corrected every geographic detail, and June laughed hard enough to spill coffee. Cal remained missing. He also remained included. Bellwether continued into February. The library built-ins became a separate contract, priced with the restoration work listed honestly instead of hidden beneath a general carpentry allowance. Darren sent sections to Mercer Workshop, paid deposits, and stopped promising completion dates before Lena saw the wood. His business remained tight. The feed warehouse bay leaked cold air. A kitchen client delayed payment. One of his trucks needed a transmission. But Ray and Manny stayed employed through winter. And Darren no longer used June's building as an imaginary solution when cash flow frightened him. He sometimes used the shop. He signed in, paid when the work belonged to Mercer Renovations, and brought donuts often enough that June added a line in the ledger marked non-cash bribery. He and Lena still argued. They argued over router speeds, finishing oils, whether a pencil had been sharpened enough to deserve the name, and the proper music for sanding. Their arguments no longer required June as a boarder. One Thursday, Lena caught Darren using the maple mallet he had made at 19. "You taking that?" she asked when he headed toward the door. He looked at it, then at the sign-out clipboard. "No," he said. "It belongs here." He put it back on its hook. The yellow floor tape along Lena's wall wore away beneath boots. June chose not to replace it. The boundary had served its purpose. The shop no longer needed to pretend Lena might leave any morning. In March, Lena brought June a typed partnership agreement. June read the first page and pushed it back. "You wrote cooperative decision-making 4 times. Because you make decisions while other people think they're still talking. Efficient, not cooperative." They revised it together. June retained ownership of the building and Cal's equipment. The business owned what it bought. Lena held an equal voice in pricing, scheduling, and safety. Each woman could refuse a job without having to defend her age, strength, grief, or ambition. June insisted on that sentence. They signed at the finishing table with Paige and Marisol as witnesses, though June told everyone it was not a wedding and refused sparkling wine. Afterward, Lena placed a new metal label holder on the shelf. June's tools went in one slot. Lena's tools went in another. Shop tools occupied the widest space. Cal's walnut-handled chisels remained June's. Spring softened the ground beside the ramp. Ivy at the forgotten back service door began putting out new leaves. June hired someone to cut it away and discovered the door still opened after Lena leaned against it twice. Air moved through the workshop from front to back. On the first warm repair evening, 9 people arrived. Martin brought a brace whose chuck jammed. Mrs. Haney came without anything broken and claimed she was there to monitor standards. Dorothy brought the toaster despite repeated instructions. Darren arrived late, carrying the 3/4-inch anniversary chisel. He had signed it out 2 days earlier to clean a hinge mortise on the final bellwether built in. The leather sleeve was tucked into his back pocket. June saw his face and knew something was wrong. What happened? Nothing happened. Lena looked over from Martin's brace. That means something happened. Darren set the chisel on the bench. It got dull. That is a thing tools do, June said. I sharpened it. Her stomach tightened. On what? By hand. You hesitated. Because I used a diamond plate. That is by hand. I know. Then why do you look guilty? He turned the blade toward the task light. The bevel shone cleanly, but the edge was rounded near one corner. He had lifted the handle through the last strokes, changing the angle and polishing away the cutting line. It was not ruined. It was badly sharpened by someone who knew enough to make the mistake prettier. June picked it up. You rocked it. The plate was smaller than mine. The plate did not move your hand. I was in a hurry. The motto of every damaged object in this shop. Behind them, the repair evening continued. Dorothy argued that the toaster's cloth cord was vintage. Marisol said fire was also vintage. Mrs. Haney poured herself coffee. Darren lowered his voice. Can you show me? June looked at him. He was not asking her to fix it. He was not asking for another tool, more time, or the quiet rescue Cal might have provided after pretending not to notice the error. Set up the coarse stone, she said. They stood at the honing bench. Darren placed the stone in its holder and added oil. Too much, June said. He wiped half away. She guided his hands into position, one around the handle, 2 fingers near the edge. Feel the bevel land, she said. Don't search for the angle. It is already there. He lowered the steel until the flat face settled. There, move forward. The first stroke scraped unevenly. You lifted at the end. I felt it. Then correct it. June removed her hands. Darren worked slowly. Forward, back, forward, back. The rounded corner began to meet the stone. He checked the scratch pattern beneath the lamp, adjusted, and continued. Lena passed behind them carrying pliers. His heel high? Not anymore, June said. Darren smiled without looking up. He moved to the fine stone, then stropped the edge. When he finished, June tested it across the end grain of a maple scrap. A translucent shaving curled from the corner. Acceptable? He asked. Good. He looked at her to make sure he had heard correctly. Good, June repeated. At closing time, people carried their repaired things into the mild night. The toaster stayed behind for rewiring. Mrs. Haney took the last coffee. Lena switched off the dust collector and left through the back door with Marisol. Darren wiped the chisel with an oily cloth. He crossed to the maple rack and reached toward the wrong opening. June said nothing. His hand stopped. The 3/4-inch slot waited beside its 5 companions, the pale outline visible beneath the handles. Darren shifted one space to the left and lowered the chisel blade first until the walnut handle settled even with the others. A soft wooden click crossed the workshop. June heard it from beside Cal's stool. Darren looked back at her. She turned off the final bench light, and they left the tool where it belonged.